The City Commission meeting of the City of St. Pete Beach. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. It is 6 p.m. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if you can please call roll.
Vice Mayor Marriott.
Here.
Commissioner Robinson.
Here.
Commissioner Ruznicki.
Here.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Here.
And Mayor Petrula.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda as proposed?
I have some discussion items.
Okay.
First one would be, I'd like to discuss the 3 times permit fee on after-the-fact permits. Number 2, an update on Mike Twitty coming for a presentation. And 3, historic designation.
Okay. Are there any other amendments?
We had ordinance, the second final reading of 2025-24, the revisions to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 131 and 132 pertaining to communication and small wireless facilities. We received an expert report Friday at 6 p.m. After the packets had already gone out. We also received proposed changes to the ordinance from the legal team for the citizens yesterday, on Monday. They haven't been distributed. So we'd ask for time to review those and put those in the packet. I think it's important that the public see what's proposed, as well as give you time to read the proposed changes, the expert report, and understand what you're voting on before we vote on it. So we'd ask that item be continued. The date that we're looking at
Date certain?
is March 13th,
March 24th.
March 24th.
We wouldn't have time for February. Don't we have another commission meeting by February?
Or even the earlier March one?
Francis?
We definitely do not have time to turn it around for the second meeting in March because of the timelines. And we keep running up against these timelines, and then we don't have the packets prepared but this first meeting in March could work.
The last. Okay.
It just gives us less time to make sure we bring you a complete ordinance, since we are working between 2 different stakeholder teams and trying to get you a very clear presentation of what the ordinance is that you're going to be considering and what are the alternatives based on the 2 different stakeholder teams that they're presenting as options or considerations for the commission.
I think the sooner the better on this. It's been out there for a while, so.
Yeah, we've been working on this for 6 months now.
So the soonest, if the soonest is the first one in March, then I, would say yes.
You will have some choices to make then at that meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there additional information you can share with us today?
Well, one of the main issues is whether there is a separation between towers, particularly on replacement towers of utility poles, and whether that's allowed by state statute, and trying to look for an area, a workaround, if you will, from any state preemptions regarding that. And then trying to make sure that if we have setbacks from real property lines of adjacent property, that doesn't act as an absolute prohibition, which is not allowed by the state statute either. And I have a table and a chart we'll put together for you so you can see the distances and whether or not it acts to prohibit them completely, which is not allowed. And this is when we're talking about the city right-of-way, small facilities. It's a bit easier, and we could do it on the other towers.
Well, just a question. I don't know if I don't know if we should have a discussion on it,
Can
but
we add a discussion item for this?
yeah, could we do it that way, just so we
Fine.
could ask questions about that? Is that possible, just so we could talk, so that way it doesn't happen later, like if there's some things that we might already have on our minds that
that
it
we
could
can
help.
use it to prepare for the
Correct.
upcoming meeting?
That's-
Did you
It
wanna
seems
do
that we
in
have a
the
lot of
meeting
people
today
here.
then?
Well,
Pardon?
would you be opposed to moving that discussion item to the place of where we were going to have the conversation about it? Because I think we may have a lot of people here who want to speak on the 5G, and I don't think they should have to sit here for 3 hours when it was the first item on the agenda.
That would be fine.
Okay, let's do that.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other amendments proposed? Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second?
City Clerk, if you please, do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosnicki,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
Mayor Petrola.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. All right, the first item is a presentation by the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Laura Canary, Community Development Director. This evening, I'm very excited to announce that we have Sarah Vitale here from the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. She's the Director of Civic Technology and has been extremely helpful and a wonderful partner over the last several months in working this density bonus pool tool out for us. Just a couple things that I want to note before she goes into her presentation. Again, this tool is specifically for those density pool units. There's other economic modeling tools that we would use for, let's say, a regular project or a by right project. So this is specifically for the density pool units exclusively. And secondly, it's really meant to be a fluid tool and like a staff tool. That's why we don't really have you taking a formal action on it. We want to be able to refine this as we use it and be able to go back as we determine as a city that maybe we need to put more weight towards, say, resiliency improvements, you know, so that we can have that flexibility. And then, of course, just as the market conditions change from a real estate standpoint, we'll need to plug in the information accordingly. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sarah Vitale to go through the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Sarah.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present this to you. Gotta yank it, right? There we go.
There you go.
So for the record, my name is Sarah Vitale. I'm with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and I'm here to walk you through this decision support framework, a framework that the city can use to evaluate requests for bonus unit density requests. So it's a spreadsheet template specifically developed for St. Pete Beach to help staff estimate the market value created by your vote by allowing bonus units, and to compare that value with the developer's proposed public benefits package. So I'm with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. We are the regional planning council for the 6 counties and 23 cities, municipalities in our region. And our role is to support local governments by providing technical assistance, analysis, and decision support tools. We don't regulate land use, approve projects, or set local policy. Instead, we help cities and counties think through trade-offs, understand impacts, and make more informed decisions. So this framework I'm presenting today fits really squarely within that role. I also want to recognize and thank Commissioner Rosnicki for her leadership representing St. Pete Beach on our board, and to introduce you to our TBRPC liaison, Megan Blanchard, back there, who serves as your primary point of contact and helps keep the city informed about our work, the lessons learned from other communities, and resources that may be helpful to you. So I'm going to cover 3 parts of the framework today, discussing the framework itself and how the bonus density value is defined, how that logic is implemented in a spreadsheet template, and then how the city could use this tool going forward. So a core concept in the framework is this idea of the trade. So every time that the city approves bonus density, it takes a discretionary public action, your vote, and creates new private value. And that value does not exist by right. It exists only because the city allows those additional units to be developed beyond what the zoning permits. So that's the city's currency in this trade framework. It's that access to bonus units, units that cannot be built by right. Then there's the developer's currency. Those are the public benefits. either cash or in-kind public benefits, benefits that advance the city's priorities, such as resilience or infrastructure investments, public access, boat slips, public art, workforce housing. All of these things could be considered a public benefit of value to the city. So this framework makes that exchange explicit and visible so that staff and the commission can clearly see both sides of the value being created and exchanged before those negotiations become hardened positions. So the goal is efficiency, consistency, and defensible decision-making. Another core concept is, what is the vote worth? The value of a density bonus is measured as the incremental land value created by allowing those additional units. So it's in the framework, we're comparing what a site is worth under existing zoning to what it's worth with those approved bonus density units. And the difference between those two values is the unearned increment, and that itself is the value created solely by your public action, by your vote. So in simple terms, we're not valuing the entire project, we're trying to isolate the value created by your vote. So for example, you can build 150 units by right, and your approval allows 170 units now. The question is, what are those extra 20 units worth in the market? That's the value that the city helped to create, and that's the value we're trying to understand when we're negotiating these public benefits. And behind the scenes, the template applies standard real estate valuation methods. So the same types of methods that lenders or appraisers would be using based on project type. So you can see in the bottom some of the default benchmarks. The condominium project type would use sales comparables. Rental projects would use stabilized net operating income and a capitalization rate. And hotel uses, lodging, would use room revenue assumptions and hotel capitalization rates. So all of the benchmarks that are embedded in the tool, they're really starting points and not appraisals or fixed fees. They function like cost estimates or traffic assumptions. So they represent an order of magnitude input, and it's intended that they be refined over time as market values evolve. And so all the benchmarks are listed in the settings tab of this spreadsheet, so staff can continue to update them as local conditions change. Now the capture rate. Once the value is estimated, the next question is, how much of that value should reasonably come back to the public? That's what establishes your capture rate. So in this framework, there are 3 different tiers that range from a more development-friendly tier for maybe markets that are emerging or in a more uncertain standing. Then there's more of a balanced range, a tier 2 split, where your capture rate is around 40 to 60% of the value, the incremental value that was created by your vote. And then you've got the tier 3, the public first range for strong constrained markets. In this template, I set the starting capture rate at 77% to represent the city's finite density pool. These units are gone once they're developed, so that's a pretty high value item. There's a lot of scarcity involved with that. So I set you up in the tier 3 just as an example for this presentation. But that capture rate, it reflects a posture, not the economics alone, and it varies based on the market strength, the scarcity of the remaining units in that pool, and then how your negotiation evolves. You may start in tier 2 and then decide, hey, they're going to give us these public benefits. Let's make this a little bit more development friendly and lower the capture rate as you go through the negotiation process. So it's meant to be fluid and dynamic. Finding the win-win. So the negotiation feasibility, how successful a negotiation is, really depends on this overlap between 2 thresholds. On one side, you have the city's minimum expectations, and that's based on this capture rate that is applied to the value that was created by the bonus units. And then on the other hand is the developer's feasibility limit. So that's the maximum contribution that a project could support, contribution being public benefits value, while maintaining a reasonable return on their investment. So shown here using a benchmark for minimum profit margin. So where those two thresholds overlap is called the zone of possible agreement, or the ZOPA. So if a proposal falls within that zone of possible agreement, it's meeting the city's expectations, it's remaining feasible to the developer. If it falls below that range, it's not meeting the city's expectations or their minimum threshold under those assumptions that are established in the template. So this is replacing some of the subjective negotiation and judgment that's taking place with a more clear and defensible explanation of why the proposal is or isn't ready to move forward. So this logic is implemented in our spreadsheet template. And I want to remind you, it's this internal decision support tool. It's not something that applicants would necessarily fill out, and it's not something that would replace the city commission's discretion. And here's just an example of that zone of potential agreement as a diagram. So you can see you have the city's minimum floor at that 77% capture rate. And then the best case scenario for the city is that they capture the entire value that they've created. And then you have this negotiable range between 77 to 85 in this example. And it overlaps with the developer's frame, range, preferred range, where their best case would be 0, that they're not paying anything for this extra density, or up to 15% of the value. They don't want to lose that as their profit margin. So those thresholds are establishing your ZOPA diagram. So back to the template, these are just screenshots from the Google spreadsheet. And it's the workflow is pretty straightforward. Step 1, the staff would enter project facts from the application. So the unit counts, the unit type, the location. There's no judgment or decision making that's really happening at this stage. And there are yellow required user inputs, gray is things that are auto-calculated in the template, and then blue are optional overrides, which I'll get back to in just a minute. And there are 5 tabs. So the inputs tab, the engine, where it's just calculating the valuation formulas. The staff don't need to do anything there. Then the summary, which shows you the diagram that I just showed you, the ZOPA diagram, and some recommendations. And then there's a settings tab where staff can review and update and maintain these benchmarks and these assumptions that fuel the tool. And then there's a final tab, the ledger tab, where it's designed to help staff over time monitor the density pools to know whether or not there's some scarcity happening across the pools. I heard that might be something that's helpful for staff to save time and be more efficient. But here's the inputs tab. So as I said before, you're entering the project name and the applicant, the address, what the use type is. That's going to drive which real estate valuation formula happens in the next tab. Which density pool you're pulling from, residential units or the temporary lodging units, what the base entitlement is, and then what the requested bonus unit or request is over base entitlement. And then the market type, so it could be an inland property or a Gulfront property. And again, I'm helping the city by creating the template and the structure, but all of this can be customized. You can have multiple tiers of market types that create different multipliers. The real service is to create the structure and the framework, but I'm excited to see how the city can evolve that to be most useful for them. And then building type, whether it's low, mid, or high rise. And then you're going to assess the proposal. In step 2 of the inputs tab, this is where you're able to essentially recreate the developer's public benefits offer or their package. You go in and list each one. The quantity of what they're offering. So for example, kayak launches, there's 10 kayak launches, and they're telling us they value that at $20,000, so $2,000 a kayak launch. is that reasonable or not? The tool won't necessarily tell you that. For an example that's specific like that, and there aren't as many industry benchmarks to compare it to, but it gives you a place to document this and document the change over time, and it gives the city a column to assign their own value to that same benefit, so you can compare what the developer suggests the value is to the city's suggestion over time, and see how far off these two players in the negotiation are from each other. Within that same tab, there's this public benefits benchmark library. So this is intended to be a starting point for staff and the city, but what we're doing here is trying to capture how different public benefits are valued. So using case studies and examples from other communities, did they assess the value of a living shoreline by linear square feet, or a seawall by linear square feet, and then what benchmark was used to help them understand that value? This is intended to evolve, and it's really intended to be an estimate. So as you read the public benefits benchmark, you'll see parks or plaza, dollar per square foot, with a low, a high, and then a median benchmark that's applied. So the goal isn't to come up with one specific number, but really just a low estimate and a high estimate. And what would be applied in the formulas are whatever is derived as the median between those two. Or that blue column, the override, is where if you did a specific study and you know the exact value of this shoreline investment, you can pop that right in and it'll override what this template comes with, which is just a lot of industry benchmarks. The next step, all in the inputs tab, is the strategic priorities section. So in here, this becomes a bit more qualitative. You can, like I said before, the city can establish this capture rate, and it can evolve over time. And another way to establish the capture rate is to basically self-score the development proposal for the public benefits and think how well does it align with our strategic priorities. Operational excellence, recovery, resilience, and sustainability, community prosperity, reliable infrastructure, and economic development and smart growth. There's different criteria for each, but you can give that public benefits package as a whole a rating of 1 through 3, and that will weight the score, and then it'll shift your capture rate up or down based on how well it's aligning with the community's or the city's strategic priorities. So you put in all the inputs, it does the formulas in the engine, and then it spits out the summary tab. And what information is valuable here is you see that the city's minimum required amount for public benefits, and it's a dollar value, but that dollar value could be made up of different types of public benefits. That's also what gets spit out on the summary page, is the breakdown of the developer's offer. And then you see their total current offer, and then you see the difference. So how far away are we from that win-win zone of possible agreement area? So you get the chart that shows the different negotiation threshold ranges. You get at the very bottom, it's a little hard to see it, but it says the current offer. So what you want to see, and as the negotiations evolve, you want to get that closer to that green range. But right now you see that in this example, the current offer is way below what the city should accept, way below the value, is undervalued in terms of the density bonus units that the city is going to give away in this scenario. So this is a bad deal. And I'm happy to say I took a look at the Quarry Landings project earlier today, and I have to refine the tool slightly because it gives us an interesting result here, but it is on the positive side, or it's a good deal. The minimum required benefits were set lower than what the actual offer was, so that's not necessarily that things are wrong in this template. It just means that means a couple different things. Maybe a portion of the benefits aren't just the discretionary incremental value. Maybe it's including like some of the impact related benefit or impact fees associated with the bonus units. So that might be what's skewing this. And also, it might just be a lot of conservative assumptions that I baked into the tool. But by applying it to this past project, it's neat to understand how this tool needs to be refined to be more accurate. So you're trying to really reflect what actually happened. So that's a good way to continue to refine the tool so that it's ready for future projects.
Can I ask something really quick before is the 5 million on the bottom the maximum? You've got a line all the way down on the bottom.
No, the maximum is that 3 million. I think it just kept, that's the x-axis, and it went too far.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's the city's ceiling, so the far right, 3,400,068,750.
Thank you.
So how the template is applied, this is basically summarizing what I've stated, but ideally before the proposal reaches the commission, staff have picked up a template that has just made things quicker for them. They're not starting from scratch in every new bonus density proposal. They're estimating the value that's created by these bonus units, using assumptions or refining the assumptions. They're applying a capture rate to establish this minimum expectation that the city should capture a certain amount of value for these bonus density units. Then they're comparing the benefits package that the developers presented to what this minimum expectation is to better understand those different zones and how far away are we from a win-win ZOPA situation. And a reminder, if you're within that range or higher in the Corey Landings case, you're meeting that minimum expectation and it's an economically feasible project. For the developer, that sounds close to a win-win. If it's below, it's not meeting the city's minimum threshold under that assumption that's baked into the template. Additional public benefits might be needed. That might be one approach that the city could explore. Maybe there needs to be fewer units offered for the same amount of public benefits. You can tweak that and see how that affects your range. Or just in general, further negotiations are warranted. It at least gives you that much information to take with you in your next steps. So, customized template tool, intentionally structured so staff can add or refine these benchmarks over time, adjust the assumptions. So when the market changes, so this tool can change. It also creates some homework because it can become outdated if it's not maintained. You can continue to expand the public benefits benchmark library, and you can apply discretion as the negotiations progress by tracking it in this tool. So the real crux of it all is the benchmarks, I think. The public benefits benchmark library, it's challenging to value something that isn't easy to put into a market and assign a dollar value to. So I think there's a lot of great long-term outcomes for other projects when it comes to understanding the benchmarks and how different infrastructure is valued. But the point is that staff no longer has to guess if a project or a seawall is really enough for 25 units. Next steps. Refining the calculations is a clear next step by staff, and with this is an opportunity for you all to give us feedback. So continue to refine this, incorporate local cost data and outcomes. If there's been fee studies done at the city level, that's the perfect information. As local as possible is what makes this tool the most valuable. And then testing it against real projects to learn from it and continue to refine it. Documenting the lessons learned from negotiations and approvals, and then refreshing these assumptions so that they stay current. So with that, I just want to thank the city for the opportunity to do this work. I learned a ton, and I think that you all have been kind of like the test subject for this type of study, and there's a lot of lessons learned that we can transfer to other communities in the region, so thank you. And I'm happy to answer some questions.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Commissioners, comments, questions?
How many cities in the Tampa Bay area have pool density?
They have, I don't know the exact number of cities. I looked at a lot of different cities, not just in our region, but in other states as well. And I tried to look at cities of a similar scale, Barrier Islands. Many have bonus density programs, but none are exactly as stringent, as strict as St. Pete Beach when it comes to negotiating really unit by unit, and less so the height of the development or the floor area ratio. Other ways to, there's other development concessions that are in play in a negotiation. St. Pete Beach is, in my experience in reviewing it, is pretty unique and challenging in a way where it's just, that's it, the units, and that's it. One other thing I forgot to mention is there's a Word document that goes along with the spreadsheet, and that's where I'm going to give you all the case studies that we did in the first portion of this project, so you can read about some of those examples I was talking about.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yeah, thank you. So first I want to thank Commissioner Reznicki for sitting on the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council board and helping take the lead to help get this project going. I think this is a really good start. I think it's always good to have a consistent method of applying data to a project to try to come to a good decision. And so I'm really pleased by that. And I think from a standpoint as a city that's looking for, that's looking to have individuals reinvest in our city, and we have, lots of aging structures and aging buildings that need to be updated and redeveloped. And so I think it's also really good to have a predictable method for people who are coming into our city to do these developments. And so I think this is an excellent tool for that as well. So I really appreciate that. I think the trick is going to be, as you said, keeping the data updated, and the inputs are, the assumptions that the tool makes are going to really be the critical thing that makes the difference on whether or not this is useful or not. And so I think that's going to be the real challenge, is making sure that the dollar values associated with those assumptions are as accurate as they can be, and that as our city staff is able to keep those updated as we go forward, so that the tool stays accurate and useful to us.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yeah, again, thank you to Ms. Vitelli and Commissioner Reznicki for the hard work in bringing this before us. I like the fact that this minimizes or reduces the guesswork. Anything that we can do to create a standard and duplicate is only going to benefit us in terms of transparency. And I just look forward to working with this. I would like to see the data that you mentioned. That was going to be one of my questions. I'm a fact-based person. I like to see that just to make sure that we're comparing things appropriately. But I like that this is a living document or tool, that it can be adjusted as necessary. It will require constant work and update, and that's fine. But it's something that sets a standard, and that we'll be able to move forward with. So again, thank you to both you ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reznicki?
I just want to say thank you, for presentation. The Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, even last Monday's meeting, is just a wealth of knowledge for local cities, municipalities, and counties statewide. So I do enjoy being on it because I learn a lot from you all. And I am excited about this tool. Is there any goal, when is this going to be available, or is this still at the beginning states?
Like you had mentioned, it's a living document. I don't know if it'll ever be totally complete, and I've had a hard time setting it down and not adding more to it. But I'll leave that up to the staff's discretion. I do need some time to just write up some of the takeaways from this meeting and the case studies that I mentioned, but maybe within February.
Okay, so is it usable now by staff? So you guys are, okay. All right, good. I guess that was my question. Is there a recommendation, when to use the tool when we are in a negotiation, because things are fluid and change, at a tech review or site, it's very different from when you get to site plan, right? So at what points, is it right before an application, or when the application is coming to commission, or we just keep changing it as it goes along, as, we're negotiating with a developer, so that number could change.
Right, and I think it would change as the benefits evolve and the package sweetens, or however it plays out. But I think the very first step is for staff to, digest the tool and really understand how it's structured, and then work with other departments to get some more clarity on what the actual value benchmark should be. I would assume like the Parks Department would have a better idea, Public Works would have a better idea for some of these benchmarks that are in the tool. I used some state standards, regional assumptions, but getting the settings tab together so it best represents St. Pete Beach, I think that's going to be beyond just the Community Development Department, but other departments to kind of come together on that. That's step one. And then when it comes to negotiation or applying it for a project, I think that can start it right away, because it's not going to be completely refined. You have to kind of use it to bring the value to it, and then you can continue to see where it might have gaps and you can add to it. So yeah, to answer your question, I think beginning, middle, and end.
That's a good time. Thank you. I appreciate. Thank you for all your hard work on it too.
Absolutely, thank you.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yeah, just an alibi, as Commissioner Wisnicki was speaking, that I just thought of was what AI implications or assumptions are you thinking about in terms of the population of the data that's going in there? You mentioned assumptions, and it's one thing for a person to plug those in manually. It's another thing for AI to help as a tool.
Yeah, I purposefully tried to avoid going down that path. Not that I'm opposed to using AI at all, but I tried to stay with industry standards in terms of different data sources like HUD for market value. I try to go traditional to explore how AI can accelerate or assist in maintaining the tool or updating the data is an interesting thing, and I would think that makes a lot of sense to do. I built it, instead of in an Excel spreadsheet, I built it in a Google Sheet so that it's online, so that you can have APIs, I forget what that stands for, but you can be pulling data into it from the property appraiser, from other places on the internet. So I think that gives it some legs. So if you wanted to explore AI tools, there's probably an add-in for Google Sheets, and maybe you can get it to start maintaining it for you in some way.
Thank you, Sarah. I think this is going to be a great tool for us moving forward. So usually what happens, developers or somebody looking to build something, they will come and have a chat with the city manager or city staff before it ever gets a technical review or anything else. So it'll be good to have something we can hand to them and say, look, if you're going to be asking for anything, here's a good starting point of what we're going to be looking for. Is there any reason we couldn't expand this further? So, for example, we have several properties that might be by right 10 units, and they could ask up to 30 units per acre, which means they're asking for an additional 20 units per acre. If they have a 2-acre property, it might be asking for 40 additional units. Now, that still requires a commission vote. It's a conditional use application. They have to come before the commission, just like they would for the density pool. Is there a reason we couldn't use this in that scenario as well?
I'd have to think about that. I really designed the template to be thinking strictly bonus density, and
Well, it is bonus. It's
Okay.
not by right.
not by right.
It is by application and by a vote of the commission. So, if somebody's looking for a double density, whether it's density pool or whether it's conditional use application, the difference is the same. At the end of the day, the effect is the same. And so, because this does happen all the time where somebody will come in and they'll ask for a double, triple density what they currently have. So this would give us a tool that we could use in more than just one scenario.
I think that's definitely possible. Yeah, it was outside of my scope to kind of apply it and think about it broadly like that, but I think that the ZOPA framework, all of this comes
course.
from all sorts of other fields, so I think there's lots of ways that you can make this a malleable tool.
And I think the only other things we probably need to look at is just kind of the assumption based on values, because I'm not sure you can buy anything in St. Pete Beach for $125,000 a unit.
I had some sticker shock when I was looking up some of this stuff, but
Yeah. But I'm sure we can come up with some more accurate data and more, market value driven data. Thank you, Sarah.
thank you.
City Clerk, do we have any general audience comments?
Russell Boring.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm of 215 43rd Avenue, St. Pete Beach, Florida, 33706. As I said, I'm Russell Boring. My wife, daughter, and I have lived here in St. Pete Beach for over 25 years. I attended last night's League of Women Voters Forum to hear what the candidates for mayor had to say about the recovery and future provision, for prevention of flood issues in our area. Let me tell you, I was appalled by the conduct of our current mayor. Despite preliminary instructions and later repeated admonitions that the candidates conduct themselves civilly and refrain from any personal or character attacks, Mr. Petrella opened with a shameless personal attack on his opponent. Not surprisingly, he did not mention that he had lost his own home in a foreclosure lawsuit. You can look it up. It's Collier County Civil Case number 12029323CA. Again, that's 1202923CA. It gets worse. Adrian Petrella had or has bigger problems than that. There's a money judgment against him for a bad debt by American Express in excess of $24,000. That's case number 112013CA 003-40700. And even worse, there's a federal tax lien from the IRS against him for $105,000, $105,932, excuse me. It's blatantly clear that Adrian Petrella considers himself above the law and beyond the rules of our society. That became obvious when he had a work crew at his house doing repairs and dry out the very next morning after the Helene storm, while the rest of us couldn't even re-enter the island to check on our homes. I seriously doubt whether anyone actually believes his gas leak excuse for that incident. According to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, there was no report of an emergency call for a gas leak. Last night, Adrian Petrella continually attacked Mr. Tate throughout the forum so much that he was admonished multiple times and the moderator had to threaten to end the meeting if it continued. He demonstrated zero decorum or class and is an embarrassment to his office. We need to stand up to his bullying tactics and his threats of a $42,000 assessment for residents unless we vote for his ridiculous toll plan. Please vote for Scott Tate, our first-rate choice for mayor. Thank you.
I thought there wasn't supposed to. Sorry.
Yep, I guess the rules of decorum I can read from the back of the cards that you all have. Persons addressing the commission and all boards, any person making personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks, or who willingly utters loud, threatening, or abusive language, or engages in any disorderly conduct which would impede, disrupt, or disturb the orderly conduct of any meeting, hearing, or proceeding shall be called to order by the presiding officer. If such conduct continues at the discretion of the presiding officer, the person may be barred from further audience with the commission during that meeting. Let's keep that in mind as we go forward.
Next person.
Todd Webb.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
This is Todd Webb, 4300 Bella Vista Drive, St. Pete Beach. Just wanted to address kind of in the same deal. I've been here since the early 80s, started homesteading here in the early 90s, watched my family grow up here. It's probably the best place to live. You know, I've been a 100% service-connected veteran, and I've been an airline pilot, corporate pilot my entire life. I could live anywhere. I choose St. Pete Beach. And I'm concerned about how this mayor race is going. You know, Scott is absolutely a great guy. After the storm, he band together people from Vina, from Bella Vista, other parts of St. Pete Beach, and he got us all like getting water for people. He got, you know, people picking up stuff for people. It was wonderful. I had a horrible, tragic thing happen. My mother drowned during the storm. He came over, gave me emotional support, unbelievably, physical support, helping move stuff. He came back because I didn't know what to do with my houses, and he came back with spreadsheets. Crazy. I mean, showing what our houses will be worth in 10 years, if I elevate, if I don't elevate, if I rebuild. And he put things really in perspective to me, helping me with decision making. I knew right then, you know, I mean, this is way before the mayor race. I mean, he would be a fantastic mayor with what he was doing, showing me everything. And then, you know, of course, I was here at the meeting last night, and I thought it was almost shameful that, you know, we elected you, Mayor. And, you know, you're name calling, you're putting these little snippets out all the time. It's just not very respectful. I mean, after this race, no matter who wins, I mean, you're both still going to live here. And we're all going to still live here. I mean, you and I, we have a mutual friend right in the neighborhood where I live. And, you know, I'd like to be friendly to you, whether you win or you don't win. But as, you know, you continue to, you know, run this mayor race, you know, I don't think it's very good. And that's my concern. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Tracy?
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
It's Tracy McGackey, 255 South Tessier Drive, St. Pete Beach, Florida. We've been here over 25 years. I've worked and lived in this community, specifically at one of our Walgreens on the beach, and I've gotten to know many of our citizens who I respect and value their opinions. Last night, I'm on the same topic, I guess. Last night, I was disappointed to hear personal attacks instead of solutions. I don't think that that was proper. What stood out to me was how Scott Tate remained composed and respectful. He was very professionalism, and that's the kind of professionalism that exactly what I want in a mayor representing our city. The fact is that Scott Tate modeled professionalism and restraint, matters that do matter to me as a voter. Leadership shows in how someone behaves when challenged. One candidate chose mudslinging, while the other stayed professional, focused, and respectful. That contrast says a lot about who is ready to lead our city. I don't think personal attacks move our city forward. We need to stay focused on solutions and treating others with dignity. That is what Scott Tate demonstrated. When people are struggling to rebuild after storms, it's critical that leadership avoids even the appearance of self-interest and stays focused on our community. That is not what I've seen from our current mayor. As a resident, I'm concerned when false information is presented in a public forum, specifically references such as, you know, this gentleman played in a band in all these Tradewinds, Surratt, and all these other hotels, and we want big, you know, overdevelopment. We don't know that. I do know that I've watched the band a couple of times. He's played in the city park. He's played on Corey Avenue. I haven't seen anything where he's played in these particular resorts. So that was a direct lie. And so when I hear a direct lie like that, I wonder what other false things are you speaking of? You know, you've had several years to turn the beach around, yet still the drains up and down the beach, including on my own street, are full of muck. It was flooding on our street before the water ever crested the seawall. That's unacceptable. You know, these news channels have been up and shown different things about yourself that were not professional. You know, I'm a professional, I'm a pharmacist, a pharmacy manager. I'm in a professional, you know, realm, and I have to behave myself in a professional manner when I'm speaking to my customers. Your customers are the people of the city. We deserve to be treated with respect, and so does every other member of our city. You know, I don't believe in mudslinging. You know, we've lived through hurricanes, recovery struggles, and tough decisions, and the trust that we need is critical. What stood out last night was that Scott Tate shows professionalism and facts over attacks, and that's the leadership that I want. I don't believe that this is a good way to represent our city, or yourself. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Deb Scheckner.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Deborah Scheckner, Bocasaga Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. I will say Scott made several digs, but he smiled while he did it. And hopefully we will receive the recording from the League of Women Voters. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it has been uploaded, so everybody can judge for themselves. And I applaud you for bringing out truth. So I wanted to talk about the Thunder concert again. Will we need more sheriffs present? Can we have code enforcement there for the entire time to protect the turtle nest, the skimmer nests, and the several surf birds in the area? We also need the lights checked. Will fireworks be part of this? Because that will scatter all of the skimmers and their nests, and we may lose all the babies. How can we avoid future large beach concerts, events, etc.? By city ordinance or regulation? We all know that hundreds and hundreds of concert goers will be drinking. It's not a positive for the skimmers, shorebirds, or the turtles. Not positive for our beach either. And they better clean it up beautifully afterwards. And I really do fear, these people are going to be smoking outside and everything and just throwing everything down. Will the music be over at 10? Will the trade wind stop serving on the beach at 10? And just limit their serving of alcohol to the area that's interior of the property. We need to take a look at, this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call for our beach. Is this who we're going to be? Party Central on our beach? And the trade winds, I do believe, said they're going to do it and fence it in, I think all the way down towards the water. If we don't do anything to stop it now, literally everybody's going to be knocking at our door to do a big concert. They'll be up Upham, they'll be at Paso Grill, and certainly at the county beach, and then trade winds. And this really is something that I feel we have to take seriously and put forth rules and regulations. And again, appreciate the mayor.
Thank you.
There are no more general comments.
Thank you. Next, we move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ruznicki?
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marriott?
Yes.
And Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, City Clerk. Next, we move on to discussion item on the small wireless facilities.
I'll read the title of the ordinance. An ordinance of the, ordinance 2025-24. An ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, providing for amendments to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 131, wireless communication towers and antennas, and Chapter 132, communication facilities in public rights-of-way, renaming Chapter 132 to communication facilities in city rights-of-way, providing for codification, conflict, severability, correction of scrivener's errors, construction, publication, and an effective date. Again, we've received some changes to the ordinance that arrived yesterday, 2 pages 81, 83, and it looks like possibly 84. We also received an expert report at 6 p.m. on Friday, dated February 6th, from Kent Chamberlain, PhD, and these will be distributed for the next reading.
Did you have a chance to, is there a short summary of what the changes are so we can, or have
I
you
can
not
read
gotten that far?
If you look at page 81, they're taking out the last two sentences and replacing with setbacks from property lines shall be based on site-specific aesthetic and concerns, but for the purpose of structural safety, there shall be a minimum setback of at least 30 feet from any existing developed structure or structure for which a site plan or permit has been submitted and deemed complete, as measured from the closest point of the structure, which is the minimum distance necessary as determined by the city to satisfy the structural safety or aesthetic concerns that are to be protected by the setback. Applicants may request a variance per the requirements of section 98-126 at sequence. There's another change. On page 83, it has quite a bit of strike-through and underlining, but just to read it without the strike-through and underlining, with respect to location, ground-mounted small wireless facilities up to 28 cubic feet in dimension shall be located within a 10-foot radius of the existing structure or utility pole for the co-located small wireless facility. Registrants are encouraged to locate new ground-mounted small wireless facilities with reasonable spacings of at least 500 feet from other ground-mounted small wireless facilities in the public right-of-way. Such ground-mounted small wireless facilities shall be installed in a location that meets locational requirements. To ensure, pursuant to Florida statutes, sections 337.4017G and H, that the placement of proposed ground equipment and communication facilities does not, and then we have the 5 criteria that the state statute does allow us to regulate in, and that is we can prohibit cell towers in locations where they materially interfere with the safe operation of traffic control equipment, materially interfere with sight lines or clear zones for transportation, pedestrians, or public safety purposes, material interfere with compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act or similar federal or state standards regarding pedestrian access and movement. D, materially fail to comply with the 2017 edition of the Florida Department of Transportation Utility Accommodation Manual. E, fail to comply with applicable codes. And F, fail to comply with objective design standards authorized under 337.4017R. Then 7R says, a city may require wireless providers to comply with objective design standards adopted by ordinance. The ordinance may only require that 1, a new utility pole that replaces an existing pole be of a substantially similar design, material, and color. 2, reasonable spacing requirements concerning the location of ground-mounted component of a small wireless facility which does not exceed 15 feet from the associated support structure. Or a small wireless facility to meet reasonable location, context, color, camouflage, and concealment requirements. And 4, a new utility pole used to support a small wireless facility to meet reasonable location, context, color, material, and predominant utility pole type at the proposed location of the utility pole. And it does say in subsection 4, 337.401, under 4, an authority, the city, may not limit the placement by minimum separation distances of small wireless facilities, utility poles on which small wireless facilities are or will be co-located, or other at-grade communication facilities.
Can you repeat that, please?
And this will be put in the packet
Yeah.
too for the next reading. I'll replace the word authority with city, since we're a city. A city may not limit the placement by minimum separation distance of small wireless facilities, comma, utility poles on which small wireless facilities are or will be co-located, comma, or other at-grade communication facilities.
Do we have any audience comments on this subject, please?
Lauren Moniz.
Good evening. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Lauren from Paso Grill. I was really upset to see this pulled from the agenda. This is 4 times in a row. I feel like we're still at square one after a year of literally giving my life to this. And I think it could have been handled differently tonight, Ralph. And I really appreciate all your time and your effort in helping us with this. But tonight, it didn't have to be pulled. It could have been discussed. It could have been voted in with the new language. And I disagree that you did receive the expert report on Friday. That's supplemental. It really doesn't have a lot to do with the decision-making process. In addition, what my lawyer sent on Monday morning was the same language, exactly the same version, exactly the same language as version 1 that you all unanimously voted in December. So there was nothing new. The only new language is what we've been discussing for weeks. And you knew this, and Francis knew this, and the entire commission was very supportive on what we're asking for, which is very simple. 30 feet minimum setback in the right-of-way from residential property lines. Easy, simple. Okay, we have a stake in this, AT&T doesn't. You are listening to AT&T with their bullying and their threats. I don't know who Francis thinks the stakeholders are. She said 2 different stakeholder teams. I'm the stakeholder. Everybody here is the stakeholder. I pay into the city, AT&T doesn't. AT&T makes money off of the city, doesn't pay into the city. I pay the salary, your salary. I elect you. So does everybody here watching. They're not stakeholders. I'm the stakeholder. The only people you should be listening to is us. Okay? But yet, every time we go to put this thing on the agenda, it gets pulled. Why? It's clear. This is clear. It couldn't be any more clearer what we want. Deliberating this is it's just beating a dead horse. We're just asking for reasonable protections because you know what? The city's hands are tied. The residents have no say in where these small wireless towers are placed. The city's hands don't have to be tied anymore if you pass this ordinance. The residents get a chance to say something about these towers being placed 5 feet, 10 feet from their bedroom windows. Reasonable protections. And if Telecom is threatening to sue the city, well, that's on them. And that shows their true colors. And that shows that they're not here to be, players in the game, just negotiating. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Marriott?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for the city attorney. Is the distance between the towers and the 30-foot setback from the property lines, are those am I understanding it correctly that those are the parts of the ordinance that from a legal perspective you have the biggest concern that may not be defensible or allowable by state statute?
We're trying to draft something that would be allowed, and it's very difficult. It's like threading a needle For example, we have a thing where you can apply for a variance, and then we cite to the variance section, but the state preemption prohibits public hearings. So we have to figure out who would review the variance application. Staff would have to decide the variance, I guess. We have quite a number of issues. We've had 3 or 4 teleconferences, Teams, Zooms with the lawyers for the citizens. We've been trying to brainstorm different ideas. Their lawyer's been very frank with me, said, well, I represent the citizens and this is what they want. You represent the city. I understand you have to protect the city. So we're trying to find language that everyone can live with. So we do have this new language. We have the report. I think you guys haven't seen the report yet, but that may be helpful to understand some of the technology that goes on.
And if we pass an ordinance on second reading, and then it is legally challenged by the telecom companies, once it's legally challenged, am I correct in understanding that once it has been legally challenged, we cannot enforce any parts of that ordinance that has been legally challenged?
I'll have to look at the new state statute on state preemption things.
Okay.
That may be a possibility.
Okay.
I know that it does award attorney's fees. There is a way to stop ordinances from going in effect if it violates a preemption. Right now, it's arguable whether it does. We're trying to make sure that we win those kind of cases if they get filed.
And if this were to be challenged, if we were to pass a second reading and it were to be challenged, I know this is a lot of ifs, right? But if we were to pass the second reading,
for the next reading too.
okay, and then I think this is a simple question. If it's challenged, do you know? I guess this is just a question you can be prepared for the next time. Does the city's insurance pay for the legal fees for that kind of a challenge, or is that separate from what our insurance covers?
We have inquired with them, and it depends on what kind of challenge is filed and when it's filed. So they won't give advisory opinions until a suit is filed. Then they'll review it to determine coverage.
Okay, thank you.
They've asked, and they said they can't.
They can't tell us right now.
No.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, not only for the commission, but for the public, so we can include setbacks and separations. We're not in the ZOPA, to steal a comment that was used earlier, in terms of what that distance would be, correct? Or is that an inaccurate statement? So we as a commission can come up with what we believe would be the minimum.
It says the city may not limit the placement by minimum separation distances. Excuse me, let me start over. A city may not limit the placement by minimum separation distances of small wireless facilities. Utility poles on small wireless facilities are or will be co-located, or other at-grade communication facilities. So the statute says you can't.
The statute says that. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Resnicki.
Okay, so then we're saying, if I'm hearing what you're saying, then we can't say 30 or 500, right? Is that what we're hearing here? That
It's very difficult. If we're going to try to do that, I have to try to fit it in the statute. And the statute is clear in one section. It says you can't expressly do that. So I'm trying to find a way to do it without violating the statute.
and just questions, I mean,
And I'm talking with their lawyers too. They're trying to help us find a way to do that.
are we looking in, like, what is a city? When I was up in Tallahassee talking to different municipalities and commissioners and councilmen and asked them, is this a problem in your city? And I went up and down the Barrier Island, to Indian Shores, where one commissioner, Howard, is at, and they weren't even sure. And they don't have, what's the difference? Like, why are we receiving so many mini towers here in this city? Based on what? Like, what's the data? Are they giving us reports? Is this part of what they do? I don't know what year, and I don't know, Mayor, maybe you were mayor then, for the fiber optics. Were you on mayor?
No.
So prior to the mayor being on, I think we had the discussion on commission about fiber optics, Frontier, and, we we put handbills on everybody's house, right? I think everyone here probably received one, right? Saying that we're going to underground fiber optics throughout the whole entire city. And now we're getting, cell towers popping up all over the place. I mean, I've driven more. Every time I go somewhere, I'm becoming more cognitive of what's around. And some are hidden pretty well. I saw a couple that went into District 1. I don't know if you saw the ones, by the church. And I'm like, what's this doing here? How are all these things just popping up, and why? Based on what? I mean, there has to be something that we can defend ourselves to say that this can't happen. I mean, we can't just sit here and say, okay, no, let's not. I almost feel like, well, yeah, go for a lawsuit, because we need to be able to speak up. Something has to be done. And, we tried. I know Lauren and her group gave me some paperwork to try to pass over while I was up in Tallahassee. And we presented it to different legislators in the House and in the Senate. Nobody was taking it. I know we're trying to get this sponsored. I know this is at a state level. But we need to become a little bit more vocal about this, because it's kind of ridiculous that we're behind a lot. I mean, it's everywhere. Your District 4, I mean, they're hidden and within people's bushes, right in their house. The one that was moved from Maritana was moved to someone's backyard on Gulf Boulevard. I mean, I think I can pretty much jump to it and kind of, pull it down, onto Gulf Boulevard from their balcony. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we have to do something, and I don't know if any of you have been trying to think of what we can do as a commission, but we need to become a little bit more vocal, because we're not doing anybody any favors by hiding behind what could be a litigation when we're talking about the safety of a lot of people. I didn't read that whole report, and I know, there's a lot of science in it, and I'm not an expert in the science of the effect, but this is happening. And I don't know how many people here know what's in their backyards. I mean, they're hiding it pretty good. One of the historic light poles on District 4 was converted to a mini tower right on Pasadena Way. I mean, I don't think none of us approved it here, right? It just happens, and we spent money on those light poles, So, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of ridiculous that we're being so careful when potentially a lot of people can be getting hurt, So that's why I don't want to wait till March, because come March, there could be so many other changes and other things. And I know it's priorities, and I understand, Francis, that you're saying there's a lot of things that we're putting on, but can we say remove some things so that we can make this a priority and push something else to March, I don't know. It's just a little frustrating, because the more, once and if the people who are here or the people who are listening start looking, there's no rhyme or reason. You can have them 20 feet away. You can have 5, 10 feet. We could have them stacked all over the place, up and down the line, and then you're competing with all these different companies. We have Frontier Fiber Optics. Then we're going to have AT&T. Then we're going to have Spectrum. They go out of business, then another one pops up. They don't remove that pole. Why don't we co-locate? Is there anything protecting us, for there not to be so many poles out there? It's very, very frustrating. So I would like to know why did we go into fiber optics? Is we put a lot of people in headache. I know in mine, people's driveways got torn up. Their their landscaping was all messed up. I mean, what was the purpose of all that? So, anyways, I would like for you to look to see, was there a rhyme or reason? Did we have any control back then? And I know, like, we got to defend the people that live here, all of us, and in the state. I think people just don't know what's happening. And then when they notice, it's a little bit too late. So anyways, thank you.
Commissioner Robinson.
I'm just going to say that I don't believe anything that Big Telecom tells me, like I don't believe anything that Big Pharma tells me, Big Tobacco tells me, and I'm all for the safety of the residents. I work in an industry that does use wireless, It does use C-band and Ku-band for transmission purposes, and I can tell you that 5G does interfere with C-band, which is one of the stronger signals that you can transmit with that requires frequency coordination so you don't injure anybody. With that said, too, is understanding that 5G is in affluent neighborhoods. You're not going to find it in non-affluent neighborhoods. It's because everybody wants their smart home, and that's the data it's collecting. It's not about cellular service. It is about data, strictly. With that being said, I mean, trying to find a fine line. Is it worth the wait to wait 2 weeks to see if Ralph can thread a needle, through? Is it? So that we don't get sued? Because we're in a situation, we don't have a lot of money, and we have people talking about plans and no plans and this and that and whatever. But the reality is, if we lose, it's going to cost you, me, the city, money. Is it worth considering? We don't know if it gets covered under our PRM policy. We don't know that. But, that's kind of where it is. I have confidence in our legal team. I think the big question here is how many more applications can they shove in before 2 weeks, right? And then the, other side is, what do the other cities have? 500-foot limits? Do the other cities? And if they do, how are they getting away with it and we can't? I don't want to be the redheaded stepchild, that's how Tallahassee views us, because we are up there asking for money. We're trying to get grants and get funded on a lot of projects. And, if we're deemed in bad light, I'm just saying, I will say, big telecom has big money. So there is a fine line. I have confidence in Ralph and the law firm to try to thread that needle. And I'm hoping we can do it, because I don't think that any of us want to risk our safety, our health, or our property values, because we already know all those are already at risk in everyday life. And there's nothing that we need to do to add more to that. I'm for it, but I'd like to see if we can get something that we can, take to the bank or try to get through that has limited consequences to us. And I think you all probably know I'm in for the fight. I'm in for a fight. I'm okay with that.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to answer Commissioner Ruznicki and Commissioner Robinson's question, St. Pete Beach has 35 wireless infrastructures, not including rooftop nodes. In comparison, Treasure Island has 11 total, including rooftop nodes. So there's obviously a problem with over placement of these, and it needs to stop. So, the bottom line is that they can camouflage them. Yes, they're well hidden. But at the same time, if this continues, then we're going to all suffer from this, and it needs to be the Commission's input to the legal team to set some boundaries. Now, what I'm not advocating for is a fight. I don't want to fight. I think that this is a partnership with the provider, or is referred to as the other stakeholder. But I would like the Commission to at least give some guidance to legal so that they can go to the next meeting, because we've been in receive mode right now. We've been told, here's what's coming, here's what it looks like. We haven't had any direct contact or negotiations. I understand that there's a statute, but on good faith, I would like to have them proffer something to us in terms of separation and distance. I think that it's their obligation as community partners to put us in a situation where we're not getting into a legal fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Robinson.
And I'd also like to know, why are we so inundated versus the other cities? Why? Well, obvious.
it is extremely frustrating sometimes that the gears of government just move very slowly. That is the reality of it. I'm not saying I like it, and I really was not a fan of pushing it again one more time for the fourth time now. We've been working on this for over half a year, and I thank you all for bringing it to the commission, starting the process. They're really how it should work in a city, right? The citizens have a concern, we bring it before the commission, we're able to start working on it, working together with our constituents to make sure that we bring something forward. I think where we are now, it's like we've got 97% of it, 98% ready to go, except for one question, really. If this was the first reading, we could just go forward. Not an issue. Just move forward. There's going to be a second reading. There's going to be opportunity for conversation. But because this is a second reading, this would be the final reading. And the main issue that we want to avoid is if this is challenged. So we have the 97% that is good, and that our city attorney can easily defend and say, look, this is all falls within the guidelines. You know, we feel comfortable on solid ground on that. The issue is if it gets challenged, we may lose that 97% as well. That's what we don't want, right? We want to make sure that the whole thing is good to go. Is there a way to break it up to where we leave out just the 30 feet for the final reading, and then we come back with a new ordinance, whether it's in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, whenever it is, after we have additional time? Because I think the only thing that's really contested is that last part, right?
The setbacks and the separation.
Okay. So in the separation, we're at how many feet now?
Well, I think we started at 300, and now they've gone up to, the citizens first started with 300, now they've gone up to 500. The statute says you can't have separation. So we're trying to find a middle ground there that would work between the statute and what we want. And I'd like to prohibit them probably in all residential districts. We do have something in there that says that they're discouraged in all residential districts, and that we ask them to move to non-residential during our negotiation time period that's in the statute. The statute has these various shot clocks as well. But if we ask and they say no, then we can't say no to that. So what we do have in the ordinance where we can actually ask.
Did you just say that they said that they cannot be in residential?
Discourage.
We have written into our ordinance that if they propose a tower in a residential, we would ask them during the statutory negotiation period to move to a non-residential. Then they have so many days to review it and see if they can. But if they come back and they say, no, we have to stay in the residential, then the statute says we have to allow them to stay there.
So it doesn't really mean anything.
I think that the statute has shot clocks. The statute has negotiation periods. The more leverage we put in our ordinance, the better we have at negotiating. So we tried to put a lot of leverage. This ordinance is 89 pages long. So we're down to page 81, page 83. But we have a lot of things that we have put in here that will help us with our negotiations, with leverage. Trying to do the best that we can here. The real battle needs to go on in Tallahassee, but we can't get Tallahassee to budge. There's a battle going on in Congress. We might get some help there, especially with the RMF and the health impacts. So that's going on simultaneously. And then the battle in Tallahassee right now is about the hyper data centers. So this 5G preemption was done in 2017. But now they're pushing for these hyper data centers that run AI, and where those would be located in zoning categories around the state. They're huge energy users, and they have a lot of impact. That's House Bill 1007. But so far we're lucky there's nothing to increase the 5G preemptions that's pending that I know of. this
So
session.
going back to the original question, can we break it up?
You could.
Okay. Is that something we could bring? We can't do it tonight since we already took it off the agenda, but can we bring it back at the next commission meeting minus those 2 items? Give you the full 4 weeks we asked for the other 2 items?
You could do that also. I think if we would take separation and setbacks out, though, that should be a new ordinance, so it would.
That's what I'm saying, is like we would have,
You could do that also. And I don't think we'd be challenged but for those 2 provisions. So then that would go into effect. Then the next ordinance, if we do the setback and the separation, that could challenge, at least the other
It's still
ordinance
on.
amendments are on the books already.
okay. City Clerk, do we have any other audience comments on the subject, please?
Ron Vigneault.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Ronald Vigneault from Bassagril. So, my question is, if there was a statute that would allow people to kill people, would you support it? That's what we're dealing with here. The statute makes no sense. It doesn't matter. All our lives are at risk, and this is serious. You know, I'm going to show you something. This is a IMF little machine. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but you see the needles? That kills people. I don't care what these company thinks in their studies. I really, really don't care. Their studies are all paid by them, to people. Well, they pay the people to say what they want to say. It's all money, but they're playing all with our lives. This is like so frustrating. My wife's spent so much time like fighting this, and she's fighting for every one of us. No, everyone. And I know there's rules in place and all that, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, our life is worth more than any of this. You know, maybe Ralph, you'll lose your job over this because you're going against the statute, but who cares? At the end of the day, you got to save your children, your grandchildren. We're talking about life matters, and this is the most important thing. I wouldn't come and speak tonight if this was not like life-threatening things, and I'm speaking from my heart. I'm afraid of where we're going, And I'm going to make a few parallels. When the COVID vaccine came out, they said, "Oh, it's all safe." You see everyone dying from it. We are at war, and it's not another country fighting us. It's big corporation making a lot of money. Greedy corporation. I don't know if anyone in the room has worked for those companies, but you have to question yourself if you want to keep working for this institution of death. And this is serious. We all gonna need to do something. And thank you, Betty, and thank you, Lisa and Adrienne. And I also Karen, John, for supporting us. You guys are brave, because a lot of people don't want to touch this. This is very, very dirty business. But we show. I mean, St. Pete Beach, maybe is amazing because it's not developed like other cities. We preserve something very special. We have a very, very beautiful community, and it's sickening to see that we have 35 towers. And you know why? Because there's money here. There's a lot of people with a lot of money, and they don't know their life is at risk. And if we don't speak up, those companies gonna make a lot of money on those people. They're collecting data that are going to be used to make more money with those people that has a lot of money. So we're gonna stop this. And thank you for your time. Thank you. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, sir. And we certainly take it very seriously, which is the reason we're having so many meetings on this, because we do want to make sure that we get it right the first time. But you can tell by the amount of effort and time every one of our commissioners has put in for the last 6 months on this, we do take it very, very seriously. And we want to make sure that we have something that is going to provide serious protection for our residents. And you're right about the reports. I've sat here many times and questioned those reports and said, look, I remember asking one time, have you ever found a report that didn't meet your criteria? right? So, you're right, but because we're up against those big entities, and we're a small entity, we want to make sure that if we're going to be David to the Goliath, we have the right stones in our sling.
Kelly Lee McFrederick.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Hi there, Kelly Lee McFrederick, 3612 East Maritana Drive, St. Pete Beach. So what I did want to start with, one was the thing was that we are still a historic neighborhood. We qualify to as a historic neighborhood, even if we qualify for, even though we're not designated yet, we can still be qualified as that we could become. So they still look at that as an important piece of this. And I want to talk about the 30 feet. It seems, I want people to know what the 30 feet came from. The tower in front of my house was 24 feet from my house. And so 30 feet really became, if you look at Maritana, some of Bella Vista, some of where everyone else is, we do have larger lots. It was to keep them out of the right of way. Let's get them out of the neighborhoods, but separate them. And then also, but what we gave, and I know was brought up, was a variance. We said, okay, AT&T, Verizon, whoever you choose to be, if you do insist that it has to be at this less amount, you have a right as a variance. Same as every single person in this room has to do a variance if they change their house, which we thought was very fair. And I've also been learning that some of the setbacks, the 500-foot distance with some of the beaches in our Pinellas County do have that in some of the towns. So that's not something that's so random. That is out there as a known fact. So those are the two things that we were really looking at hard. And just so everyone knows, I went door knocking. I've been door knocking. I've been at every neighborhood meeting. I'm doing what I can. I cannot find a person out there who says, I want a tower in front of my house. I need more cell phone coverage. No, I don't. And I wouldn't have this room packed. I spent another hour and a half on texting everybody, emailing everyone, saying we're off of the agenda. I wish I would have packed your room and had them all speak about how they feel. With complete respect, you all would be the most popular people about in this entire country if this goes, as we make this go forward. It's us taking a stand as a hero and going, we are going to be an example. I feel telecom is definitely a little threatened because we're here because they put so many, what are we at, 35 towers we've put in so far. And I will voice what he was saying as well, is that we're looking at, we are $550 billion this year, and what they're expected to increase the revenue, what they're going to be making, to $850 billion. These are not good citizens. These telecom companies are not good citizens. They're going, oh my word, we're going to take that nice little light pole in front of Kelly Lee's house and put up a 100-foot tower there and go, that's a great thing. I'm a good citizen. I'm right on the intercoastal. I'm going to block her water view. I'm going to fall in her docks 10 feet behind, and I'm going to go right on my house at 24 feet. Bam! Isn't that a great citizen? That's not someone that's for us. So I went door knocking more on Maritana, who has lots just like mine. And speaking at your meeting, Bella Vista, some of the people have come back to me, Vina Del Mar, they've come back to me. I've become known. I've been on the news. I'm here. And they do not want this. And that's what the constituents are saying. We want to be protected. I understand, how we have to do it. And I really have no fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Jack Rice.
Good evening, sir. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Jack Rice, 3612 East Maritana Drive. So the thing that people haven't talked about is insurance, homeowners insurance, property insurance. So when we began the insurance industry years ago, I've been in for 35 years, by the way, they decided to make flood plans. So you get charged if you're lower and less if you're higher. Then they decided to charge for whether you had a fire hydrant near your house. The further away it was, the more expensive it is. They're going to do the same thing with this. So you're going to be charged if there is a tower near your house, if it's within the ordinance. And if it's closer than 30 feet or 500 feet, you're going to get charged more. So we all worry about homeowners insurance, property insurance, commercial insurance. All these rates are going to increase based on the decision you guys make here today, and it's going to start here. So if you're too close to a tower, like the old Bush Mansion, which is right next to it's right on their property, they're going to pay more insurance. So it's going to come down. It's going to be there. So that's another thing to think about. And everybody's insurance is an important thing. Thank you.
Deborah Scheckner.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Deborah Schner, Bocasega IL Drive in St. Pete Beach. I think I have a reason why we have so many, because they're expecting huge developments to go up, thousands and thousands of rooms that will need cell service and Wi-Fi. So sometimes there's unintended consequences for what you vote on. This is scary. It's scary that somebody could come home from work and a huge tower is in their yard. And to sneak one in a backyard, I mean, that's just wrong. I think that they should be in the hotel district. To have 35 already, to me, is unconscionable. And then when you talk about hyper data centers for AI takes so much water to cool down their product. We're in a drought. So I guess none of these companies really, I'm going to say, give a damn about us in St. Pete Beach. So that's why we're going to have to fight it. Put them near businesses if that's the way to be. There's just something wrong as to why our city has to be the first to fight this. But I also wonder if other cities in Pinellas County or possibly Hillsborough or wherever else will join that lawsuit and share some of that cost, because this is coming to them whether they like it or not. But again, I really, really, truly think that if we didn't have all this huge development with the ballrooms, and of course we all know they want casinos, which we have fought forever, that put it where the hotels are. Let them deal with it if we want them. It's really a tough situation here, but listen, health, safety is a primary job of a city. And so that's something that we have to look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claudine Reese.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Claudine Reese, 3120 East Vina Del Mar. I just want to say that I agree with the residents that have been up here talking about the unchecked telecom companies, because as people are saying, you know, they'll create studies that show data in their favor, big pharma. And I just love seeing the consensus. I just wish, though, that you had had that same passion when we were talking about big developers. But anyway, I'm so happy that we have a consensus, and I wish that we could get this passed through. So if we can just get it over the finish line, we'd all really appreciate it. And apparently there were going to be quite a few people here, so hopefully they're all writing in to let you know how they feel. Thank you.
Matt Mucci.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Matt Mucci, Lakeland, Florida, representing AT&T tonight. So, you know, let me just say, first off, my presence here tonight, I had no idea that this agenda item got pulled. And the language that was read earlier tonight, I don't know if that's language that we have seen yet or not. I'm assuming we haven't.
That's from the citizens, or you have not seen it yet?
We have not seen it, okay.
Saw it yesterday.
Great. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So I came to this meeting tonight thinking that we had reached an agreement with the city, and you know, all the work that we have done with Ralph and Francis over the last, like you said, 4 meetings now, this has been pushed. We thought we came to somewhat of an agreement. And so it's a little surprising to be here tonight to hear that there's new language and you know, new concerns, and now you're thinking about piecemealing it, and that's your objective. You can do whatever you want with that. I just wanted to state that we've had a very good working relationship. We've had a good working relationship with some of your citizens about some of the AT&T. I can't speak for the other telecoms. I don't know where their resources are, their infrastructure is in this city, but I know where ours is, and I know we've had some issues, and we've made some concessions. But when it all comes down to is what you all decide on as far as a future ordinance, is it in compliance with state law? So that's every meeting we've had with the city attorney, we've gone through and we said, we can accept this, or no, this is in defiance of state law. And so that's where we are. That's our guide. So if there's changes to state law that are going to be made, like you said, making that trek up to Tallahassee and getting to change some minds up there, then we will fall in line. But as it states now, what has been somewhat agreed upon has been in compliance with state law, and we have been in agreement with as well. So that's where we are. So if you have any questions for us, please, we will continue to have that open dialogue. We appreciate the openness that we've had. I mean, you all have been great, and I can't complain about anything other than coming here tonight and realizing that you pulled it and there's new language to consider. So once we have that new language, we'll again review it and we'll report back to you. And again, I don't know where that stands. I'm not an attorney, so I can't tell you that that's going to be acceptable or not. But again, we are here to work with you, not against you.
Thank you. And just so that we have clarity of the record of how we got here today, is the last time it got pulled is because we got language from the telecoms, and we wanted to make sure that we gave the residents ample time and our city attorney to review the language that we were asked by the telecommunications companies to revise our ordinance. And so we're now also giving them the opportunity as well to come back with it. I also just want to make sure that we're being technically correct. We haven't had any agreements because we haven't voted on anything. And so, you know, you have a communication with the city attorney, you have a communication with the city attorney, you know, both sides are talking to them. We're trying to do some back and forth on this, see if there's a middle ground where we can all win from this. It's clear that we haven't got there yet. And so, which is why we're having these conversations now, because this is the only time all five of us can ever talk. We're not allowed to talk about these issues, and so there could not have been an agreement at any point until we voted. And so this is why we're having these extensive conversations, because if you're asking us for changes, we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to see what those things are, that the city attorney is able to review them. And I'm not sure that 24 hours was quite enough time. I appreciate what you said about we sent them on Friday. I also received it Friday at 7:15 p.m., which I do check my emails on weekends, but at the same time, it's technically been 24 business hours since we've had an opportunity to look at it. And we do want to make sure that we do the best possible job with the ordinance that we bring, that it actually does give us the protections that we're all looking for. I don't think anyone here is not looking for protection. We all seem to be very much in agreement on that.
There are no further comments on this item.
Okay. Is there... Okay. So if we break up the ordinance into two, I'm just trying to think out loud here and have this conversation, right? If we're breaking up this ordinance into two components, could we bring both of those separately as two separate ordinances for a first reading in 2 weeks, and then for second reading in 4 weeks, which keeps us on the same schedule that we have now, but it also allows us to deal with the individual issues?
Yes, you could do that. Because the Verizon had comments that the ordinance was too vague. Those were not comments that the ordinance violated the state preemptions. The reason the ordinance has to be vague is so we don't step across the line on the state preemptions. It was a bit intentionally vague, right? AT&T, after going through the ordinance as proposed by citizens and worked on language, and after going line by line through the ordinance, like we did with the citizens' attorneys, they agreed to everything we had in there, and agreed to also write in there that nothing in this ordinance will abrogate the private property rights of citizens, which the citizens' attorneys wanted in case they have to challenge a tower in a particular location in the future. We also put in there that The towers shall comply with all applicable codes. That allows our building official to go in and check to make sure they're in compliance with all the building codes. They did object and said, no, we can't agree to the 300-foot separation, which is now a 500-foot separation proposed. And they said, no, they can't agree to 30 feet setbacks from the real property line in the right-of-way because the usable portion of the right-of-way is less than 30 feet because the street takes up the middle of the right-of-way, and typically there's only 11 to 18 feet on the shoulder where these things would go in, so they couldn't fit one in a right-of-way, which would be an outright prohibition, which is prohibited by the statute. The latest language we got yesterday from the citizens changed it to 30 feet from a structure. So, you know, everyone has their house and their front yard, for example, and you think that entire yard is yours, but there's a bit that's the city right-of-way that's in there. But 30 feet from the structure probably doesn't prohibit small wireless facilities in the right-of-way, because if you're in the right-of-way, you could probably find a place that's 30 feet from the structure, depending on where you locate it. So that one might be
Ralph, in the
a little
30
bit
feet
easier
right
to
away,
defend in a case.
in that 30-foot right away that you're talking about, are you talking from the center of the road to the front of the home, or from
No.
the right away on the opposite side? Because let's just say Maritana's a 50-foot right away from.
The way it's
there's
written
25,
right now is
25.
that no small wireless facilities, say tower,
Mhm.
be within 30 feet of the house. So that could cross a right-of-way. Sometimes it doesn't cross a right-of-way. Sometimes it's in the setback. But it's a structure to the pole, basically.
Mhm.
Do we have a height limitation on the poles? Height limitation on the poles?
The state law says that we can say no taller than other poles in the area. We have that in the ordinance.
Yeah, that's-
I urge you all to read the whole entire
Oh, I
89
know.
pages of the ordinance.
the
I know
notes.
it's tedious and hard, but go through it with a highlighter like this. Have them printed out at City Hall. Go through with a highlighter so you can see all that's in there. There's a lot in that ordinance that's beneficial, that has been agreed to. So separating it like the mayor is talking about, I haven't thought of that till you brought it up tonight, but they could be. Then the one ordinance wouldn't get challenged, and then maybe the other one would, but at least you'd have the one ordinance with all the beneficial language in there that helps us.
So it is a complicated document, and it takes a fine-tooth comb to go through it. So on page 14 of this current document, it addresses the heights. But I also wanted to add the layer of complexity is that Passaic Grill does not have the separation that some of the other districts have. So that adds another layer of challenge. And that's why I said, you know, the 30-foot, there may be the need to adjust that. But as Kelly Lee eloquently stated, there's also the variance. So just, we have to capture that if we want to have teeth on this thing. Otherwise, it's just an ordinance. So.
If we don't do the variance, the other alternative is to propose it during the negotiation period also.
Yeah.
Which would probably more clearly be within the statute. That's
Yeah.
what we did for the residential versus non-residential. And then I like the idea, we said that towers in residential are discouraged. Maybe we could say towers in the hotel district is encouraged. And the right-of-way adjacent to the hotel district is encouraged. And then when you read the expert witness report, it explains the difference between capacity and coverage, and then fiber optics, and it explains it this way, like fiber optics runs into your house, right? And then you have your Wi-Fi in your house with your modem, and you have a bunch of people in your house, maybe a bunch of kids all streaming movies. That can cause a capacity problem if you have too many things feeding in there. And there can be a coverage problem with that Wi-Fi. It may not reach the basement, or it may not reach the backyard or something. But remember, you're on your phone there or your iPad, and you're on MiFi or Wi-Fi. you're not on cellular. But when you leave your house and you walk down the street and you're walking your dog and you're not connected to Wi-Fi, that's when that capacity and then that coverage issue comes in on your phone. And I've been told by the experts that it's primarily not talking on the phone that's the problem. It's the data that people access and utilize on their smartphones, iPhones, Google phones, all the phones that you have and all the data you're doing on there, all the apps.
So commissioners, what do we want to do? Do we leave it as is? 4 weeks, final reading after some more revision, or do we want to split up into two components, first reading in 2 weeks, second reading in 4 weeks?
I like the split. But did we talk about two as
It
splitting?
would split the two out that
Two out.
the telecom won't agree to, that
Leave the hard
other one's
base.
all in one ordinance.
Right, that I think we're all in agreement on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then those other two, do they get split out separately?
It would be split on a separate ordinance, and then the fight would be over those.
Okay. Would they be one ordinance or two different ordinances, one per each?
I would do one for separation and setback.
Okay.
That's what we're doing with the beach ordinance. We're separating.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Avoid the legal challenge.
Yeah.
Do we have consensus on that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that give you something to work with?
Yep.
Can you restate the timeline?
First reading in 2 weeks, which essentially is, we already had a first reading on this. It's just because of the substantial change to the ordinance, we're now doing a second first reading or a new first reading. Or do we not have, can we do a second reading and cross out that one section?
We could do a second reading on the basic ordinance, for the 88 pages basic ordinance, and then we could do a first reading on the 30 feet and 500 feet, do a first reading on that, and then you could have the second reading on that in 4 weeks.
Okay, so then we would have something that would be before the commission, that could be voted on. If it passes, it could be implemented immediately.
You get the
And
basic
then-
stuff
and then
in
we
2
would
weeks.
also have a first reading for the second component, which we could then have a second reading on in 4 weeks.
Yes.
I mean, listen, we're here until 10 o'clock. We've been here until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, it's not a matter of, there's too many things on the agenda. If there's work to be done, we're here, work will get done. Maybe y'all go home at 10, but we don't, right? If we have to, we will stay here. So if there's already, full agenda in 2 weeks from now, as much as I hate to ask the city manager and all of our staff to be here, if that's what it takes, that's what we will have to do. And so, but I think if we can get a first reading, close out this one, have a first reading on the other one, then we can move forward with something here.
So then I'd need a motion to continue ordinance 2025-24, second reading, until February 24th.
Is there a motion?
I motion to move the second reading of ordinance 2025-24 for date certain, which was
February 24th.
February 24th,
Or soon thereafter.
or soon thereafter.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Ruznicki,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
and Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Then if I could get, I guess, just consensus to prepare the second ordinance, and would you want that also on the 24th?
Well, if we do a first reading
First
on the
reading on the
on the 24th, then that'll still give us the full 4 weeks for the second reading, so it doesn't change the timetable. We're not
Okay.
pushing it back even further.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And then the second reading, if it passes on first reading, would be on March 9th. Okay.
March 9th is a Monday.
So the 10th?
10th.
Yeah, the 10th.
We're doing
That's
it on.
No, the
election day.
Yeah.
The meeting is on
We
the,
happen to have an election on March 10th,
so the meeting is the 9th.
so the meeting is on the 9th.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at just a blank calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the word's gotten out about the election, but
It's an election.
Okay. Great. Next, we have action item number 6A, Resolution 2026-04.
This is a resolution of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, accepting the finding of necessity report prepared by Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for a proposed community redevelopment area, making the findings required by Chapter 163, Part 3, Florida statutes, finding that conditions of blight exist within the proposed area, declaring resiliency, infrastructure improvements, housing and economic development as a primary redevelopment purpose, declaring a need for a community redevelopment agency to carry out the purposes of Chapter 163, Part 3, Florida statutes, directing the city manager to take all actions necessary to effectuate the creation of the community redevelopment area, and providing for construction, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Thank you. Hi, Laura.
Hello, good evening. Laura Canary, Community Development Director. Before I hand it over to Matt Lewis with Stantec, I just wanted to do a quick overview on the CRA, sorry for the acronym, Community Redevelopment Agency Community Engagement Process, because I think it's really important. And again, before we do the deeper dive, just kind of do a high level overview of what we've done and where we're at. So currently tonight you have the finding of necessity study before you. That is also what's referred to as a slum and blight study. I'm sure many of you have heard that term before. That is the first step in the process. Again, when you're identifying and establishing a redevelopment agency, this is the first step. No matter where you are across the state, this is what you have to do first to find out if those conditions exist in the area that you're looking at. Subsequently, then, we will start, if this is approved tonight, then the next step will really be to start that engagement with our stakeholders and also begin facilitating the community engagement. I want to emphasize that the community engagement, again, this is a community redevelopment area. It needs to be a community-driven plan. This is different than the comprehensive plan. This community redevelopment plan doesn't necessarily even have teeth. It's really more of a strategic plan, think of it as you will. And then as we update the comp plan and the LDC, that's how it's memorialized, and that's what gives the initiatives that are identified in the redevelopment plan that teeth. Secondly, I just want to emphasize the importance of that partnership with Pinellas County. Again, with Pinellas County being a charter county, they do have the ability to say and change their policies, is what they've done as far as what their TIF contribution looks like. TIF is tax increment financing, and that's basically, in essence, why we're doing all of this, is potentially to have that partnership and that funding. But that engagement is key, and so we already have started working with Pinellas County and Forward Pinellas and basically gave them a heads up that this is coming. But upon approval, if the next step will really be to then go back, start sitting with the county, and as we talk about the next steps as far as the coordination with them and how we look at their policy and their delegation criteria, we really want to sit with them. We've already worked through that criteria, but we want them at the table with us so that we can ensure that we're identifying shared goals and objectives. At the end of the day, again, these are Pinellas County residents as St. Pete Beach residents. As we develop the plan, I put an asterisk next to it because it will require the potential issuance of an RFP. Again, we would be coming back to you all for that direction at the time once we get a better understanding of kind of what we can anticipate cost-wise. So that's why potential issuance of an RFP. We would develop the redevelopment plan. Again, that is, I anticipate that would take, considering that there was already a lot of work done even going back 20 years ago, so there's not a lot of new information. It's really just generating kind of those initiatives and strategies that you want to incorporate into the planning document. And again, making sure that it's community driven. We'll have a series of workshops and stakeholder engagement opportunities, both online and in person, to really have the community be able to come out and provide their input. Once the plan is it is drafted, then it would go before you all for adoption. And then again, kind of some of this is happening simultaneously. What we would anticipate is, again, as we're working through the county policy criteria, we would be kind of having a really good indication as far as where we land. There's, I think I've said before, there's basically 3 tiers that you can be now per the county's delegation criteria. You can be an urban revitalization area, which is basically saying that you have the greatest need. You can be a community renewal, where you're kind of in the middle, and then you can be economic development, which is the lowest of the threshold, and basically that's what determines what the county's contribution will be percentage-wise, what the term of your CRA operational time frame will be, as well as, the county has pretty much taken a stance that if, say, they're approving a 10-year, they want a 5-year review. They want that midpoint review to just kind of see what's already been done and what's going to be continued to be done, or what is planned. So as we're kind of arriving at that, then a final step would be to go back to the county, where we would get a delegation of authority resolution, which is basically them delegating that authority as a charter county, and then the redevelopment trust fund ordinance. The redevelopment trust fund ordinance is what establishes the redevelopment trust fund, and that would be where all of the terms and the ingredients are basically woven into, whether it's a 10-year CRA, if the county's contributing at 70% or 50%, and what that looks like, that would all be intertwined into the redevelopment trust fund ordinance. Before also I kick it over to Matt, I just, a couple questions have came up along the way as I've kind of begun to talk to staff on our team, as well as members of the community. And, slum and blight is a very touchy kind of word, and a lot of times one of the biggest questions that we get is this going to make my property values go down? Or even if it's the perception, kind of like when we think of a brown field and that negative connotation. So with that, I could probably talk, and I'm a huge proponent for CRAs. I think they're the only economic development tool left at the local level. But I encourage anyone to do their own homework. The Florida Redevelopment Association is an arm of the Florida League of Cities. The Florida Redevelopment Association is the association through the state of Florida that CRAs are a part of. There's currently, last time I counted, about 227 across the state of Florida, CRAs. And when you look at that makeup, you can see that St. Augustine is a good example of a successful CRA. We have many here locally. Dunedin, I would consider one of the it's really a poster child for a CRA. And when you can see how redevelopment was done right, and you were able to utilize the increment to reinvest in that area. St. Pete has some super successful ones. So again, I just encourage anyone to go to redevelopment.net to really take a look at those CRAs, and to really hopefully kind of eliminate some of that stigma that some may think when they hear, again, slum and blight study and what that means for the future redevelopment. Last but not least, I just want to say how this is, I don't want to say truly unique, that it would be the first one and only in the state that's resiliency and infrastructure centric. We know that there's a lot of other CRAs that have had to start to weave that into their redevelopment plans. But I will tell you that from the starting point with this plan, this has been a true partnership with public services. Camden and Gina have been in every single meeting almost that we've had with Stantec, again, because we wanted to develop this area and this boundary based on the infrastructure needs, and being able to identify the, basically the TIF as a funding source for these infrastructure and resiliency needs. So with that, I will hand it over to Matt Lewis with Stantec. And again, just thank you to our team, Gail and the planning team, and also public services for their help thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Ms. Canary. Thank you. Matt Lewis, I'm a principal with Stantec, and working with, as Ms. Canary says, the planning team and the public services team to look at developing a finding of necessity for an infrastructure and resiliency focused CRA beach. So I am a lot of what I would say on this slide, Ms. Canary's already covered. So I'm not going to belabor these points with you anymore, other than to say that a finding of necessity is a data-driven process. It's about what objectively do we see in the community that attribute to these slum and blight conditions. And I'm going to go a little bit further on some history of the slum and blight. And that term actually came from an old 1950s program called urban renewal. Urban renewal was renowned as being not the best idea in the world. What it basically said was, these areas are full of slum and blight. Let's tear them down and hope that somebody builds something back better. states like Florida came along later and said, you know what? I don't think that's working out the way you intended for that to work out. Let's go ahead and do something a little bit different, which is let's identify the steps needed to improve these areas, to address the conditions that led to this slum and blight. And let's fund the improvements necessary to make it happen. We're taking this one step further, and we're saying, let's look at how vulnerability to major disasters is a condition that hurts property and life. And let's look at how we can use the same tools to reduce that vulnerability. So this gets to why we need a CRA here. To sum it up, St. Pete Beach is a city with a small population, very small population base, receiving a disproportionate amount of the impacts of Pinellas County's tourism economy. And I'll get into that a little bit later. On top of it, we're on a barrier island, a very narrow barrier island, all of which is inundated in a major storm event, which means all of our infrastructure, all of our population is at risk to a major storm. And our infrastructure is older. And our housing supply is older, our buildings are older, and I'll get into those later. So we have limited advantages, limited possibilities for redundancies in our system. And on top of all this stuff adds up to, it costs more to build infrastructure here than it does in areas that are high and dry. You have to build it up. You have to expect for it to be damaged in the future. You have to rebuild it. So the resiliency in this investment is going to be a critical component for bouncing back. We're not going to stop the ocean, but we're going to bounce back more quickly. I want to get into a little bit about how we found this boundary, how we thought about identifying the boundary for the proposed CRA. I'm not going to belabor the first slide. That is, the red means you're underwater by 9 feet in a Category 3 hurricane. You know that. I don't need to belabor that point. The second image in this is actually infrastructure that was damaged during Hurricanes Helene and Milton, Tropical Storm Debbie. And it's a good deal of infrastructure, and there's two areas, South St. Pete Beach and the downtown where we're at right now, that were hit the strongest in terms of infrastructure damage. The third slide is the border, the boundary that we're looking at for the CRA. And when you look at that boundary, you have one, downtown, incorporating all the plans to rejuvenate downtown, and two, the tourist district, the large resort hotels, the boutique hotels. This is the capturing the revenue that that area is generating that is otherwise going countywide and bringing it back into the city to mitigate the impacts. So to give you a sense of just how important tourism is to Pinellas County, not just St. Pete Beach, is the bed tax revenue here is comparable and in some cases exceeds larger cities, despite a population of 9,000 people. What that means is you have intensified demand on local revenue, local infrastructure services without the population base and without the basic tax base to mitigate those impacts. You know, St. Petersburg is mitigating their impacts over 260,000 people. City of Clearwater, less tourism impact, 117,000 people. St. Pete Beach, 9,000. And let's think about the population. Now, typically when you look at a finding of necessity, you want to identify areas that are vulnerable, either economically, from a social justice point of view, or whatever reason that may be. From the point of view of resiliency, what we have in St. Pete Beach is an aging population. 42% of the residents are 65 and older. That means that mobility is becoming an issue. getting around. The fact that there's no grocery store on the island means something, and that you have to go over the bridge to go to the grocery store. It's not a quick trip anymore. So accessibility to basic goods and services is important based on the vulnerability of the population. So I'm not going to belabor the geographic vulnerability of you being evacuation zone A. This is known. We've experienced it over the years, most recently in 2024. But I will say this is being amplified with climate change. You can expect it to be more and potentially more severe. And establishing the CRA is one tool that helps to reduce that vulnerability. It supports the investments in stormwater management, seawall reinforcement, dune restorations, utility upgrades, and these things are not going to hold back the ocean, but they will help you bounce back quicker. And I'll get into why bouncing back quicker is important in a little bit here. Laura alluded earlier to how other CRAs fund resiliency and address resiliency. Just want to point out a couple. There's the Amelia River Waterfront CRA. It's in Fernandina Beach. And they actually have projects devoted to resiliency. It's not a resiliency-focused CRA, but they have projects devoted to resiliency, and one of them is this waterfront park. And this is something to think about as you're going through this planning process, is that a resiliency improvement doesn't have to be a massive engineering project. It can be two things. A waterfront park can be a flood mitigation project. Another one is the North Beach CRA in Miami. Now, the North Beach CRA actually has a whole section of it devoted to resilience, with capital improvements to fund streets, to address street flooding, daytime flooding, which is a big deal there, seawalls, waterway restorations. So again, things can be two things. And then there are other tools used around the state that uses the same charter county ability to make TIFs without going through the CRA requirements that you see in statute. One is the Bay Park Improvement District in Sarasota, which includes a living seawall effectively. The second is not in this area, but is in Washington, D.C., which is the Anacostia Waterfront Initiative. If you've ever been to the Navy Yards there, that is built with TIF-like, CRA-like funding from the Anacostia Waterfront Initiative. And then in Gainesville, they actually just went ahead and did a CRA and built their own interlocal agreement between the city and the county that established a state statute like CRA within the county's authority. So I alluded earlier to the Corey Avenue Vision Plan. The Corey Avenue Vision Plan is actually the foundation for the downtown portion of your CRA. Improvements in that address everything from walkability to sustainability and resiliency. The current comprehensive plan has special planning area, future land use district that establishes character areas throughout an area that effectively covers the CRA, and that's not an accident. That evolved from 2005 and 2013 efforts to develop a CRA for the area. The difference being today we're focusing on the resiliency improvements and less on traditional CRA approaches. And I keep wanting to do that when I have this in my hand. All right, so under Florida statute, we are in the first step of a CRA designation procedure, finding of necessity by the county or municipality. I'm not going to belabor and read this to you, but this study is looking at these conditions, slum and blight conditions, determined through the statutory criteria through a lens of improving your ability to recover from major disasters. And you meet the statutory criteria. Particularly two factors. These are the slum factors. Inadequate provision for ventilation, light, air sanitation, or open spaces. Keep in mind sanitation. During the last storm, major sanitation damage. And then the existence of conditions that engender life or property by fire or other causes. Category 1 evacuation zone. If Category 1 hurricane hits you, 3 feet of water covers pretty much all the island. And I'll go into the other factors in the following slides. So, mentioned those severe sanitation challenges. Just a few highlights. All of the wastewater lift stations, 3 of the wastewater pump stations, and 1 stormwater lift station were damaged by the storms. 10 required major rehabilitation. Nearly 60% of your wastewater infrastructure requiring major rehabilitation. That is a sanitary issue due to vulnerability to major storm events. Tens of millions of gallons of overflow went into Tampa Bay just because of the fact that there was a storm. When we looked at the infrastructure damage within the area that we were looking at for the boundaries of this, there were 547 points. That means 547 pieces of infrastructure damaged within that boundary. 65% of them were utility related. That's your water and sewer system. It's one of the foundations for why we have cities, is water and sewer. The existence of conditions that endanger life or property by fire or other causes. So, evacuation zone A, 3 feet of water, even the most minor of storm, and don't expect it to let up. We had a year of a cluster of storms, one after another. We probably, hopefully, we won't have that again, but climate change evidence is saying otherwise to us right now. One of the factors is predominance of defective, inadequate street layout, parking facilities, roadways, bridges, or public transportation facilities. So all of your streets are in the coastal high hazard area. This is known. All of them are underwater in a major event. These are evacuation routes as well. So being underwater in one storm is fine. Being underwater in repetitive storms is damaging your evacuation ability. So it's something to keep in mind is how do we make sure our streets are resilient and can bounce back so we can make it through the next storm. And then one of the things we noticed is just failing to meet modern design standards. And this gets back to the tourism economy here, in that if somebody comes to the island and decides to stay in a hotel on the island, use the resources of the island, then it'd probably be a good idea if they spent money on the island. The moment they get in a car, their options are beyond Corey. Their options are downtown St. Pete. Their options are Gateway. They can go multiple places that are just as easy as going to Corey. So improving the sidewalk network, improving the multimodal transportation connections is a big part of keeping those dollars on the island. Unsanitary or unsafe conditions. Interestingly enough, I did not expect to find this because typically after a storm you'll let up on code enforcement because, you know, people are, they have other things to deal with. But there was a 27% increase in code violations following the storms, which means it stuck around. The typical ones, substandard property, unpermitted work, overgrown vegetation. That's an indicator of vacancies, which is an impact on tourism. It doesn't look good. People don't feel good about being here. Deterioration of site or other improvements, and I'm going to go into this in the next few slides, but basically what you're seeing is storm events damage infrastructure, make you more vulnerable to the next storm event, make it more expensive to recover, and you're in a cycle. First one, your infrastructure meant to protect you, damaged. Dunes, seawalls, making you vulnerable to the next event. You have to get these things repaired. Otherwise, the damage next time is going to be more. And then I mentioned earlier the population and the basic services. The only grocery store in the city was lost to fire. CRA may have the ability, the tools to bring that to bring those basic services back into the city. And then I'm going to get to vacancy rates now. So they are higher in this area than in the rest of Pinellas County. CoStar data is showing a 6.4% vacancy rate. The rest of the county is at 4.9%. However, city tracking of this information is significantly higher. CoStar is a known piece of information. It's a good data source for these types of studies. Internal city tracking we know to be higher, but not necessarily is trusted as a CoStar piece of data. However, what is trustworthy is your half-cent sales tax revenue. If you look at the budget, in 2024, $722,000 and half-cent sales tax revenue collected. End of 2024, fiscal year happens, coinciding with several hurricanes. 2025 actual revenue, half of that. So if that's not a leading indicator of business loss, then I don't know what is. That's half of the sales tax revenue down, half the sales gone. And then, just based on the pictures that we saw, the community, the code enforcement, you see residential vacancies more prevalent, a lot of damaged structures still not repaired. Which brings us to the risk of Florida building code violations. And this particular factor is a weird one. So we looked at it from a different perspective, is that in the city, what was built before the notion of FEMA flood zones, before the notion of building something above the floodplain, and what was built before it. So 68% of the city was built before the notion of that. That's 68% of the buildings that are likely at risk to, flooding issues. And just, as a FYI, it's not something we looked at. 2002, the Florida Building Code became a statewide code, with the exception of 202 structures. Everything was built before then. But we didn't get into that because we didn't know if people replaced their windows or fixed their roofs. A lot of things could have happened. So we're meeting the statutory requirements to establish a CRA. We have, and this is just looking at vulnerability to climate change. Vulnerability to major hurricanes, vulnerability to just basic flooding from tropical storms. We have an aging population. We have a high storm surge risk. Our infrastructure is old and not necessarily able to handle repeated events. We have unsanitary environments and site deteriorations as a result of these storms. We've lost seawalls, buildings are gone, people are not coming back into homes. Some homes are just not habitable anymore. Vacancy rates and economic decline are evident both by site and in the tax revenue data that we've seen. And a large share of the buildings in the city are vulnerable to code issues. They're built prior to FEMA standards and likely built and not rehabbed prior to the statewide Florida Building Code. So if we establish today that St. Pete Beach has a necessity to use tax increment financing revenues to fund infrastructure improvements, to help us bounce back more effectively from disasters in the future. Laura actually summed this up much better to begin the presentation, but what you're looking at is a process where you start doing a community redevelopment plan. That community redevelopment plan, my advice to you is that you bound it by reality, both economic and physical, as well as political, so that if you're doing the first TIF for resilience, that's at its heart and core, that thing, you have something that can deliver the improvements and can actually make the city a better place to live and a safer place to live. So I'm available for questions.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner Maldonado.
Hey, Matt, thank you for that presentation. I found it very informative and answered several of my questions. What considerations, if any, do we have to consider when it comes to historically designated areas? Any impact whatsoever?
As far as resiliency improvements and
In terms of the CRA designation?
in terms of the CRA designation, you can look at that, and you definitely would look at historic designated areas that are within the CRA in terms of how you would think about planning for them. And the way you would approach the resilience improvements in those areas would have to be sensitive to those districts, while at the same time protecting them as much as possible. I can't tell you exactly what it looks like right now, but you will have to think about that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Robinson?
Are some of these conditions, though, consistent with any natural disaster? The decrease in revenues, things to that effect?
Consistent with any
With after a natural disaster, such as, if we were going to go to Hawaii and look at or we're going to go to California and look at a fire, if we're going to go down to Naples or Cape Coral and look what happened to them after a hurricane.
Oh, you're right. After a natural disaster, you will see a reduction in revenue. You'll see businesses not being able to remain open. Some businesses closing. What we're talking about here is not eliminating that condition, because it's going to happen. You cannot stop the ocean. It's bouncing back more quickly.
Understood.
It's how do you recover as quickly as possible, and just understanding the importance of St. Pete Beach to the Pinellas County tourist economy, and the importance to Pinellas County for St. Pete Beach to bounce back more quickly.
And compared to the damage assessment that we see here, why are some areas not included and other areas are?
So we looked at areas that, one, would have the potential to really produce the most TIF revenue as possible for you, which are largely your non-residential areas first and foremost. They're less likely to be homesteaded. And secondly, areas that have the potential to drive your economic base and implement your plans. So Corey Avenue being the de facto downtown, de facto Main Street, it's critical to get that in to make the CRA improvements necessary to make Corey Avenue the gem that it is. Extend the gem from Sunrise to Sunset, and then to include the hotel districts, because they are,
The Corey
good revenue
Avenue
generators.
area seemed to extend a little further than what initially was planned for in the downtown redevelopment. What was the reason for that?
I'm sorry, hold on one second.
What page?
I'm just looking at a map. Hang on.
I'm going to find a map here.
The map with the St. Pete Beach Community Redevelopment Area in red. Or you can go to the one that actually has.
How's this one?
Go to the one that compares the, hang on, let me find a page here. It is right here. Your our agenda page 151. Your page 2-27. Sorry.
That's actually the one here on the screen.
Page 9 for you.
Thank you.
So it's on the right of this.
It's got the Corey Avenue vision plan on it.
Yeah, if you go down 5 more pages.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, this says 7, sorry.
The one that says history and priority.
There you go.
There you go.
So the question.
Well, it's expanded much past this. I mean, this is basically 75th, some 76. It's 73rd through 76th.
If you go up 5 pages, it actually includes all of that area.
Yeah.
It includes all that, but it also expands past that. That's what
Yeah,
I'm getting
so if we look
I'm asking
at,
why it's expanded past that, because that does include some, a lot of residential in that area, and then it doesn't go to like where Woody's or Toasted Monkey is, or anything along Sunset around that way, which is also something that we're looking at as well from.
I think it does.
No, it does. Yeah, it does, because
Okay.
it goes 2 blocks north of Corey, 3 blocks
On the
in
red?
some cases.
If you look at the,
Which
page on
Go
your
up
big
4
screen.
pages.
Okay.
One more. There you go. All the way to the right.
Right.
It's that entire colored in area.
Yeah, all of that. And then all the businesses along Blind Pass. And then it does not include the residential areas in District 2, just the resort areas in District 2.
Okay, good. Because on the red one, it doesn't appear that way, and it didn't have the streets on it.
Yeah. Teamwork.
Every time I
so
touch
what this
it,
is
there's
doing
something else.
is it's taking that special planning area 1 area that has the existing strategies for community redevelopment, community revitalization in them, and extending it so that you capture the coastline, and you capture areas where you can make a lot of the resilience improvements that you could possibly make through a CRA plan. It also is covering a lot of the hot spots for infrastructure damage that you saw during the last cycle of storms.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. That was great. And thank you, Laura, for getting that kicked off. I think this has been very thoroughly and thoughtfully done, and I appreciate that. And I think this is our best current potential way to really increase some funding for some resiliency projects and have the potential to make a really big difference going forward in St. Pete Beach. So I think it has a ton of potential. And my question, and this may be more a question for city staff, or it may not be a very answerable question, but what is the I think in the past the city of St. Pete Beach tried to create a CRA, and it never quite got to the finish line. And so I don't know if you had any information about what's different, or is the landscape changed, or has our application process changed, or do we fit the criteria better now than we used to? Do we have a better chance of actually getting this to the finish line than we did before?
Thank you, Laura Canary, Community Development Director. I think it's a combination of things. I think number one, the county criteria that I mentioned, that all started in about 2019 is when they first said that they were going to they had a number of CRAs in Pinellas County that were reaching their 30-year mark. Per the state statute, the way the statute is written, it allows a CRA to have a maximum lifespan, operational time frame, if you will, of 60 years if the CRA was established before, it's like July, whatever, of 2002. So if your CRA was established before 2002, you can go out potentially a total of 60 years. If it was after that time period, a total of 40 years. So in Pinellas County in particular, we had quite a few CRAs that were coming up on that expiration date and coming forward to the county of wanting to extend their operational time frame, and the county was like, oh, wait a minute, like, again, not to knock on St. Pete, but when you see some of the super success in St. Pete, the idea is that a CRA should put itself out of business, is what they say, because essentially you want, to see that revitalization has occurred. And you were seeing the success of the CRAs, but you weren't seeing them sunset. And so at that time is when the county said, okay, we're going to, put some policy in place that basically, because we are a charter county and have that ability, so that we're kind of being more, when it's a fair process for the municipality. So as they come forward, whether they're a new CRA or looking to expand, meaning their boundary and make it bigger, or extend their time frame, that we're looking at criteria that make sure that it's aligned with our goals and objectives. So that all started in 2019 and then became like memorialized in 2021. You also have that, I don't know all of the history, but I can tell you that the original boundary and everything didn't change too much. I can tell you that I think it would have been a very, very heavy lift even, 3 years ago to try and get one in St. Pete Beach or any of the barrier island communities here in Pinellas County. But I think what we saw with the storms is that you saw that blight can happen overnight, and it's not always visual. In our case, we know that when it comes to the infrastructure, we already had these issues well before the storms and going back to as early as when the CRA was first looked at. But because visually you can't really see it, and if you're not in the thick of it like Camden and understand what I&I is and all of that, it's harder to say that this is a slum and blighted area. So I think that the combination of with the storms, unfortunately, the impact, and Commissioner Robinson, to your point, I think that's a very valid point, and one of the concerns that we had early on as we were starting this FON study is, as we document the conditions, we need to be very careful that we're not documenting conditions that are maybe considered temporary, right, or just part of the rebuilding. And so what we tried to document was conditions that existed pre-storms, but then again what maybe became just more visual with that blight that occurred overnight. So I think it's the combination of those things. And then last but not least, I think that, again, this is just something, I've learned more since I've been here almost last year, but even before I got here, I knew what a contributor St. Pete Beach was to tourism in Pinellas County, and how St. Pete Beach as a contributor was not getting its fair share through the CIP and elite event funding that VSPC funds through the bed tax. And so in my mind, again, it's part of that bigger story of what St. Pete Beach means for the county's economy, frankly, and how this is really essentially, I almost want to call it, instead of a community redevelopment agency, I want to call it a community rebuilding agency, essentially, because I think that's really what, that's what we're doing here. Again, it's all about the rebuilding and being able to build back faster. So I hope that answered your question, because I think it's really the compilation of all of that coming together, and the timing is ripe, that even though it still is a heavy lift, I think that if we have an opportunity to sit down with our county partners, now's a better time than ever.
Thank you. That does answer my question. I really appreciate it. And I think this is like I say, I think this is our best opportunity to get a lot of the funding that we need to make some really lasting changes in the city. And so I'm very in favor of it. Thank you.
I did want to say one more thing that I forgot to say earlier. I'm sorry. When I was saying, to anyone that wants to do their own homework, another really good resource. If you go on Pinellas County site and you want to pull up the VAB, you can actually see the TIF districts for Pinellas County. And so you can see, again, historically, I wouldn't use the last years as the best indicator, but you can really see how these areas are outperforming the cities as a whole. So when you start to look at those valuation increases. So the question as to if it's going to impact my property valuation, potentially, but likely it'll go up. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Not so fast, Laura. So, first of all, if I understand correctly from previous meetings, this is one of your superpowers. This is something that you bring to the city in terms of having worked this issue prior. Is that correct?
Yes, I get a little more enthusiastic about this than substantial damage assessments. Yes.
So we have a sandbagger amongst us, and I'm just happy to see that we're looking at this. And after seeing 2 previous attempts, I think that maybe we just required the skill sets and the expertise. My question comes to the CRA boundary that's up there right now. I see that District 4, the southernmost part of St. Pete Beach, is not included in the, what is this here, the boundary. And my question is, does it have to be contiguous, or is this something that we can package and piecemeal? Because we also have a business district. We have the boutique hotels that, were severely damaged and are struggling to get back. We have one in particular that, they're going to be coming to the city with some plans, but it's gone. I mean, that thing was 4 feet underwater. So, I'd like to see how we can leverage this, not only to modernize our infrastructure, but to improve that resiliency.
So I think start small. And what I mean by that, yes, it does have to be contiguous. The other thing they changed, I think Port Richey was the last CRA in the state that was able to get in where almost their entire city is a CRA. So now they have, you cannot have your CRA be more than 80% of the geographical boundary of the municipality that it is within. So we are, we have those parameters, but then again, that's kind of why we start with the Corey Avenue, that downtown core, and then branch out. That isn't to say that at some point, and especially if we're doing redevelopment right and we're getting that ROI on the investment, that we couldn't look at a potential expansion and or another area. You can have more than one district. At that point, you would still have one agency that would be overseeing the redevelopment trust fund. The only caveat of that is that if you were to, say, establish another district or even an expansion, if you were to expand the boundary, in the case of an expansion, the base year is still that original base year of when the CRA established. When you create a new district, or an expansion, if it's now you're not contiguous, you have to reset the base year. So, and a redevelopment trust fund, the redevelopment trust fund is separated. So you essentially have a little bit more limitations on the expenditures, but again, you can look at those other areas as long as you're within the 80% of the total boundary, of the municipal boundary.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reznicki?
You answered a lot of the questions I had written down, but first, thank you for the presentation, both of you, for the presentation tonight. 100% supporter of the CRA, and the questions you answered was, I was agreeing with Lisa Robinson, with Commissioner Robinson, sorry, with the residents, because when you were doing your presentation, you mentioned, the tourism and everybody else who comes in, for improving the business district, right? Like that's what we're trying to attract. But we're also talking about the people who live here at the same breath, because you mentioned, our grocery store, right? We can't shop within our own area. So it's the people that live here too that are also supporting these businesses. I mean, that's what we want, is for the people who live in all our different residents in all our different districts. So, I wrote down the note that you said now it's 80% of the boundary. So in the discussion between everything, I was trying to pick up what we can or we cannot do. Is that 80%? Like, what's the percentage right now with this area? Do you know?
So I just actually, Gil just had the acreage.
0.7 acres.
Well, I'll get back to you on the exact number. But yeah, I was like,
half a block?
Yeah, so we were at 0.7 square miles. So again, we're well under that threshold, and so we would have potential room to look at, making that boundary broader. But again, that's where I think we need to be very strategic and intentional with, I think a lot of times something that gets a little bit concerning is when you start to expand that boundary, and especially into those residential areas in particular.
Because the boundary has to be continuous.
Contiguous, yes.
And so, yeah, because, I'm just trying to think of how you get all the way down to Paso Grill, because you have, when we still have boutique hotel district all along the coastline, then it becomes residential, but it's /residential commercial by El Centro, then the Don, and then there's a little bit of residence before you get over to Paso Grill, which is a historic district, which is, I want to say it's almost like a business in itself. People go over there just to drive through. So again, just trying to get creative on it, because you mentioned St. Augustine, and I don't know what percentage they are, but they're a historic city. So I don't know if when you gave that as an example, is that the whole city of St. Augustine, or just their historic district?
They have that now. They just created a third CRA, so they have the historic CRA, which is in the historic district. That was found on parking and transportation blight, and essentially is how they funded their parking garage. And then they have the Lincolnville CRA, which is a predominantly residential area that, again, is more, it's really all about housing in that area. So again, parking and transportation over here, housing for the second, and then they just established a third CRA, which is the West City CRA. One of the things, though, that we see a lot of, and I think that as a practice, practitioners have gotten better about, you'll see a lot of CRA boundaries split in the middle of a roadway. And so you end up in a position where the CRA can, say, fund the sidewalks and the pedestrian improvements on the north side, but then they got to partner with the city for the south side. So we've gotten a little bit better about that and, you know, trying to make sure that we're capturing both sides of the road to not run into a situation like that. I will tell you that we still do have the ability to, with this boundary, as we get out there, I mean, the real work is going to be as we start to do the plan development and are out talking to the community and hearing that feedback. So again, by all means, if there's a parcel that's contiguous and it makes absolute sense, or we see something, or there's a project that we just know it makes sense, we have that ability to, you know, tweak it as necessary before it's memorialized and finalized. Because again, the conditions that were found are not saying that these conditions exist on every parcel. It's just that within this area, these conditions exist. So we do have a little bit of flexibility there. We would just be probably a little reluctant to get too big right away, is, you know, kind of baby steps working with the county, I think.
I think it's better to get something approved
Right.
than it is to expand beyond what is approvable.
Correct.
Well said.
And then just the last comment that I had, because we mentioned, you're all echoing how the city of St. Pete Beach is the #1 contributor, I would say, right, to tourism, or biggest, I'm hearing #1, like the biggest for Pinellas County. You said #1 back there? 2, okay. That's still pretty significant. That we got to use this information, I'm not saying just with you, but a city overall, you know, with the tourist development tax dollars or bed tax. I mean, if this is what these reports are saying, we should be, and I know, Francis, you're nodding there, so, but we need to all somehow be going to Pinellas County and talking about this, you know, because this has been going on maybe for some while, and I'm not asking you to tell me that data, you probably don't have it, but maybe it has been like this for a long time, and we're not really fighting for the dollars we should be getting, you know, in comparison to what we're contributing back, you know, so we got to get a little vocal about this.
And I think that, you know, getting the CRA champions, as I'll call them, on board, right? Because, you know, the bed tax, in some ways, it's not related to the CRA and this establishment, but it really is, you know, and I think it's telling that story and getting those champions that are able to then go forward, and when we're there, you know, for the CRA, you know, understanding, first of all, really educating and understanding that, hey, by us creating this CRA, all that bed tax that we've been contributing for decades that we haven't really seen come back besides with the beach renourishment, you know, this is one way that we can start to cycle some of the funding back into our county, back to where it's being generated from. I think that's the beautiful thing about a CRA, is that there's no concerns of that this area over here generated it and you're spending it only over here. Again, it's just getting cycled back into that area, and that it's kind of that, you know, that trade-off, if you will, for understanding that, okay, if the policy is what it is and you're not going to, you know, we're only going to look at beach renourishment from here on out, well, then all the more reason, this is, again, probably phase 2 or 3. Some of the criteria that the county looks at, for example, is very similar to like the CDBG stuff. So again, getting the county to a point where they weight resiliency or being in a coastal high hazard area as much or more as being in a CDBG census tract.
Thank you.
Laura, I only have one question. Have we done any preliminary studies or assessments as to what the positive revenue to the city might be if this goes through?
Not yet. Not yet. I know that when we ran the original valuation for the boundary, and we can come back with that as part of our probably first engagement and outreach session, we looked at the overall valuation, and then we use a rule of thumb of a 2.5% valuation increase, which is pretty conservative, but that's kind of just standard across. Again, it's just a projection, but that's what we usually use when we're looking at a TIF projection and spreadsheet. So we'll probably show that. And then again, break it out as far as how that looks at a 50% from the county, because again, different millage, and so you have to put it all in collectively, but we'll probably show some examples so that we'll have a really good indication as far as if we fall here with the county and the criteria, here's what we can expect and here's where we can land, because again, that's going to help really the planning process and what you can do. I'm not crazy about the economic development threshold only being 10 years. You know, that's something that, again, if we establish it, that's something that hopefully we have time then to be able to reevaluate what that looks like. And again, if we're going forward for an operational time frame extension, again, that we even have that ability. But I think we start with getting it hopefully approved, and then we can really show how this is now the model, hopefully, for resiliency and infrastructure-based CRAs, at least in the Barrier Island communities here in Pinellas.
Do you remember what those initial projections were?
No, I'm
Are
sorry.
we talking a few $100,000, a few $1 million?
Oh, it was over $100 million for the valuation for this area. Yes, I do know that.
Around 100 million?
Yeah.
At a 2.5%, so 2.5 million. Is that per year, or is that for the lifetime of the 10 years?
That was per year.
Okay.
Again, that was really rough, though.
No, I understand. I'm not going to hold you to that number. So, but I mean, in the next steps, we'll get even more details on the projections, right? So if we max it out, here's where we can be.
I'm just looking, because I know Gil had the exact number at one point.
Okay.
If he has it
Well, we can go to audience comments, and if you find it, we can come back with it. Commissioner Robinson, go ahead.
Yeah, I had another question. Where are we in the process? Because I know originally it was do the study, and then, because my concern is I just want to make sure we have community buy-in. I don't see why we wouldn't, but I would like to see community buy-in if people are concerned with being called blight.
So the next step from here, you all authorizing us to basically entertain and look at now, the next step would be to develop the redevelopment plan and begin those conversations with the county. So we would also be then looking at, again, based on the anticipated cost of the redevelopment plan, we would be bringing that back to you for approval, and potentially, if we need to issue an RFP, for the issuance of the RFP to be able to go under contract to write the redevelopment plan. So that would be the next step. And then the community engagement, that's part of the planning process. That's day one of the planning process.
So that's after we've approved a CRA and the whole bit, and the county's approved it, then?
No, that's to start.
Okay, when is so the community engagement would come not next, but after county approval?
After we have been given authorization to enter into a contract to write the redevelopment plan, we would start the community engagement immediately.
I think one of the first slides showed that was like we're on step one, and step two includes like step 2.5 is the community engagement.
And for full transparency, because I think it's very important, because I've said the heavy lift with the county and everything. Okay, so what happens if all of this work and then they say no, or they don't want to play nice in the sandbox? This work is not done for nothing. As one of, I think it was Matt's second or third slide showed, those other alternatives for TIF districts. You know, it doesn't, again, this is the state statutory criteria for a CRA, but obviously that model is kind of getting outdated, and even, you know, the slum and blight, and, you know, I think that I think at the end of the day, even if we're in a situation where it doesn't look like the CRA historic model is the right fit for us, we would still use all of that planning, all of that community engagement. We would still use it all to inform the LDC updates that we're looking to do. We would still use it to inform our comp plan amendments when we're able to make those. So that engagement would still be utilized and then be able to be incorporated into our policies one way or another. And then again, hopefully have another vehicle to actually fund, you know, through a TIF district. The other thing is that nothing says that you can't still, as a city, have the CRA, have that dedicated funding source so that it's cycled back in. Again, you just don't benefit over the county's contribution, but that still would require a delegation of authority from the county to say that, yes, we can establish it, and now, because they have the redevelopment powers, they're giving us the redevelopment powers to do that within this area and set up a trust fund. So it wouldn't be ideal for sure, but we would still have, we've kind of come up with some plan B, C, D, and E. If necessary, we would pivot.
Okay, great, thank you.
Do we have any audience comments?
Yes. Gregory Primer.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Sure, Gregory Premer, 3957 Moody Street, Bella Vista in St. Pete Beach. I had the honor of being in your guys' position 10, 12 years ago when the CRA was last got brought up and shot down. The biggest hurdle we faced at that time was the community or development. There was a small yet vocal faction that detested the words blight and slum. If there's a way we can tweak those words so they're not as harsh, I don't know if that has to be part of the actual verbiage, but blight and slum word just killed it for anybody that was, especially on the north end of the island. If we can soften that somehow and get the word out to this is how it's going to help us. Now, I was also happened to be around when we did the Corey Avenue vision plan, where it was Corey Sunrise, where am I? Corey Sunrise, Corey Sunset. Now that we are where we are, the sunrise part is underway. The sunset part I thought was beautiful. If you haven't seen the actual vision of it, the band shell at the west end of Corey with hotels down there. Speaking of hotels, there's a reason we're number 2 in tourist development dollars. Bed tax, head tax is our great hotels. Well, I've been in the city of St. Pete Beach 34 years. In that time, 0 new hotels, not a one. Hotel Zamora was remodeled. We've had some remodeling, but we had 0 new hotels in the entire 34 years I've been here. In that same time, more than 1,000 condominiums have gone in, individual condominiums. 6 different condominium complexes have been built since I've been here. Now we got another one coming in, Corey Sunrise, which was going to be apartments. Now it's condominiums. Makes me wonder, we have a mayor that's a real estate developer.
Oh, stop.
That it makes me wonder why none of the money is going to hotels and why everybody is so afraid of, oh my God, it's going to be a huge concrete canyon. We're going to be another Clearwater Beach. Let the hotels modernize. They are the lifeblood. Everybody in St. Pete Beach knew this was a tourist town, a resort town, and without our hotels vibrant and redone, we're not going to have that distinction anymore. So thank you very much. I hope we do get the CRA moving, and good luck. Good job. Thank you.
Deborah Schechner.
If you'll please state your name.
Schechner, Bocasaga Island, St. Pete Beach. I can tell you why the first one failed, because it was eminent domain. So they're taking properties for the CRA through eminent domain, and that clearly failed. I was here then. So I was all for this until all I heard from one of these gentlemen, tourist, tourist, tourist. I didn't hear, make the residential area more beautiful. No, make the hotels. I don't want those hotels to get a penny of this money. They have enough. And if they can't afford to redevelop properly, and quite frankly, if hotels abided by our laws, our regulations, our comprehensive plan, they surely could have been built. I have actually been to the CRA in St. Augustine. And here's one of the problems that they had. A lot of the homes that were improved became VRBOs. And so on the next block, all the houses said, homes, not hotels. So when we prepare this, I think we need to be very, very careful and to have very important safeguards so that our communities do not get ruined by this. CRA, I didn't understand, is it for the whole city, just that little section? I don't want the hotels to get my tax dollars. That should go into infrastructure, improving homes. I think we need to look at the CRA, and we just have to keep it out of the hotel area. They can contribute, and they should, but we need to improve infrastructure for residents as well. Everything seems to go to the hotels, the undergrounding, sewer pipe. We need to get paid back for some of that stuff for sure. So when I walked in here, I was all in favor of it with severe safeguards, i.e., I know we have rules and regulations about VRBOs, but unfortunately they're not always found out nor taken care of. Streetscapes, yeah, that's a good one. Street improvements. They also have architectural guidelines, which I've always thought was a good idea. Redevelop housing. That's what they did in that Lincoln area. Traffic improvements, parking, infrastructure. They don't talk about hotels when they did it in this particular area of St. Augustine. I don't want my tax dollars going to a private entity. I want it to go to homeowners, small businesses, and maybe even a couple of very small hotels. So if you do this, please have restrictions and please have safeguards. Thank you. By the way, we pay 80% of the real estate taxes, not the hotels.
Thank you.
Kathy Garchow?
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Kathy Garshaw, 3607 Casablanca Avenue. This looks great, Laura and Commission. I just wanted to ask, as you are looking at the way that your areas mapped out, at least I'm curious why the Don Cesar Hotel maybe wasn't looked at. And I know that we're exploring, I mean, just because that is such an incredible, special place for our community. Maybe it doesn't make sense for this first round, but it stopped there. The other aspect, of course, is that it sits on the Don Cesar Plat, which we already know creates a lot of vulnerability for the city, including the boat ramp. So potentially, I just wanted to mention that that could be a valuable and kind of congruent aspect of the way that we're exploring this going forward. So thanks. It's great, though.
Thank you, Kathy.
There are no more audience comments.
Okay. Well, as we saw in the report at the last commission meeting, our city has a real need of $213 million of infrastructure that we somehow have to find money to pay for. And I want to say thank you to a couple of individuals. I want to say thank you to our city staff. I want to say thank you to the University of Florida, who helped us get this ball rolling. I want to say a huge thank you to the commissioners that when I brought this idea first forward to the commission, for your support then, and I want to thank you for your support today, because it is important that we do pay for this infrastructure need that our city has. And if we can bring an additional $2.5 million or more in additional revenue every single year, this is money that would have gone to the county, but instead this is now coming to us. This can pay over the next 10 years for at least 10% of that. And so with that, I want to say, as far as the commission goes, you will have my commitment that I will work with the county commissioners to do everything I can to move this thing forward. I know we've built great relationships with them. I know the city staff has done an amazing job in the short time that they've been here. Laura, just a year, city manager, just a year and a half, but the relationships that they have built with the county administrators and the county staff, the relationships that we have built with the county commissioners, you on a couple of boards, me on a couple of boards. So we're going to make sure that we use every resource that we have at our disposal to see that we get this thing moved forward. Because after the storms, a lot of this became it became apparent that we do need to find ways of, how do we redevelop responsibly? How do we attract redevelopment? How do we attract new businesses in? And that all starts by having nice, new, clean buildings that tenants and business tenants in particular want to come to. And so I want to say thank you to everyone that's helped bring this far. And I hope that we can take this over to the finish line. I look forward to the community engagement, having those town halls and having those communications and those conversations with our residents. I appreciate everyone that came here tonight, and I look forward to taking this all the way. And so with that, I will make a motion that we pass Resolution 2026-04, accepting the findings of necessity report for a proposed community redevelopment area.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Commissioner
Maldonado?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosnicki?
Yes.
And Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. The next item that we have is action item 6B, Resolution 2026-1.
A resolution of the City of St. Pete Beach vacating a 3-foot platted easement at the rear of lots 5 and 6 of Block C of Sunset Park replat, recorded in Plat Book 18, page 6 of Pinellas County Public Records, located within the property boundaries of 103 24th Avenue, and providing for construction, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Good evening, Brennan Berry, planner. There have been no changes to the resolution since the prior meeting when it was continued. In the interim, we have received a building permit to relocate the sewer line that was discussed at the meeting. It will remain on the subject property. It's being moved to the east side of the property, adjacent to the neighbor's lot. There is a proposal, and I believe the owner stated they did record a license agreement that has been reviewed by the city attorney's office. That would preserve the sewer access to the manhole at the rear of the subject property for the neighboring residents. According to the city attorney, that does protect the city's interest. We do have the property owner and their representation present. Staff has no additional comments. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments? Other than to say thank you to getting us to this point.
Yeah, no, that was it. It's just thank you to the staff and the attorney, as well as the PASS for just coming up with an innovative solution to what was not a commission problem, but it is a community problem. So thank you all.
Do we have any audience comments?
Michael Pezza?
Good evening, sir. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Pezza, 103 24th Avenue, Paso Grill. And I just wanted to kind of, Brandon kind of brought us up to speed with everything here, and I'm very happy with that. We wanted to do it to, lay this plan out so that we could, make sure that there's no disruptions with the sewer from our neighbors. We're willing to pay for it 100%. It's, $8,000, it's a lot of money, but we're willing to do that. But I just wanted to, come up here and, thank you all and give you a little bit of background on how we got here. And I'll do it quickly, but, we bought the house in 2017, and it was our intentions, we bought the house to put a built-in pool in. And with that being said, we started that process a couple of years ago. It was 2 years in March that we started this whole process and found out about this sewer running into our yard. Okay, we had no idea. The title search, it was clean, no problems. Helene comes through, and we decide that even though our house didn't get damaged, and we love our house, but I was there and the water was coming, and it was scary. So we decided, we're not going to put all this money into the property, let's rebuild it, right? So we tried to donate the house to the city. You guys did your investigation on it, didn't make sense. We now have a buyer for the lot that's going to take the lot and hopefully move it to, they already started, but hopefully move it to Corey Avenue.
You mean the house?
Awesome,
The house?
The house, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we've got that rolling. Some things have been tied up here just because this vacated lot is very crucial to us, because we can't build the house or put the pool in unless that lot is vacated. Talked to all the utility companies, they've all approved, so we're good with that. So now we're just hoping that you guys will approve this, the information that's in front of you tonight, so that we can move on and the house will be moved and, we'll be able to build our dream house. One story, not this monster, okay, past the grill. So I think it'll fit in great with the community. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for bringing us to this point and working it out with the neighbors. We appreciate it very much. Any other audience comments?
There are no other audience comment.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make the motion to approve Resolution 2026-01.
Second.
City Clerk, if you please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosnicki,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have 3 items for discussion, and they're all for you, Commissioner Robinson.
I just wanted to start off by discussing the 3 times permit fees for the after-the-fact permits that, per the city website, states will become in effect February 16th. I have concerns with that, as I don't think the notification has been adequate in giving to the residents on that, considering we did send out a letter in January to those 500 and some odd homes that this would affect. And we did not include in that letter that the permit fees would then be 3 times as a penalty for the after-the-fact permitting starting February 16th. I would like to see an extension on that. Pinellas County itself, the unincorporated plus 6 cities, including Bel Air Beach, have extended their after-the-fact permits without fees to June 30th. So I believe we are ahead of the curve on this, and I don't think that's where we want to be, especially with, I don't feel that the notification was quite adequate. I believe we should give more notification to the residents for this. I'd like to see a longer period for an extension on that.
Just to make sure we're all on the same page, what you're talking about is unpermitted work.
Correct. The after-the-fact permit fees for unpermitted work from the hurricanes.
Okay. So I think we could do this a couple of different ways, but I think one way we could do it is to have this happens all the time with parking tickets, with other issues, is we could have an amnesty period, right, where we could say, look, so this is part of the city ordinances, right? If you do unpermitted work and somehow, you're found out, then you're actually not responsible just for the regular permit fee, but for triple permit fees. And so we could look at doing a amnesty program and just say, look, you have until, if everybody else is June 30th, we could do June 30th. That's 120 days almost, right? And have an amnesty period and just let everybody know, just if you did the work, just come tell us, right? Like, we all live here, we're all neighbors. None of us want to come, find you. None of that stuff. Nobody wants to do any of that stuff. But it's been a year and a half, and at this point, if you did unpermitted work, come in, get your permit done. We can get someone in the building department to help you with the paperwork. Make sure you get it done the right way.
I would assume there's going to be another letter that goes out, most likely, and maybe that's as well as we can state that in there. And again, I'd be looking at this being for unpermitted or after-the-fact hurricane damage repairs, not somebody who's doing it knowingly that it's not hurricane related.
So if we're provided this guidance by the commission, then where we're at right now, just so there's background for the public, we have, the last report I got from community development was about 250 residents who have been non-responsive to the final notice that was sent out in January. If we're provided this direction, the plan would be to personally notify those 250 of what the commission has guided us to tell them. And then, just so you also know, those 250 may not have done unpermitted work, because we have a mix of situations right now where out of the 250 that have responded, we started with about 500. There are several people who haven't done anything, and they're just waiting for various things like funding, deciding whether they're going to rebuild or fix. So this would, I think the guidance we are seeking is this would only apply to those who have done unpermitted hurricane repair work, and we're just trying to get them compliant with the city codes. And then others who have done nothing, there's no penalty at this. I mean, there's nothing to, other than to wait and help them to the extent we can when they're ready to rebuild.
But are there FEMA implications for the city?
There are not. So FEMA, the process they pay attention to is, are we communicating and enforcing our codes? So even though maybe someone has not repaired their home, if it's not blighted or a code enforcement, we do have actually 2 active examples of that where we have windows blown out, the property is in very bad disrepair. That goes into the code realm. But if your house looks beautiful from the street and you just haven't fixed it up, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we're not talking about letting people off the hook and not getting permits, but rather just not enforcing the punitive aspect that is already on
Within our
books.
discretion.
Yeah, and just say, look, just please do the right thing. Bring your permits forth. Commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understand you correctly. When you say amnesty, you just mean amnesty from the punitive triple permit fees. They'll still be paying the regular permit fees.
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea.
So, but in that case, then why have an amnesty? Why do the 3 times permit if we're going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, why say that if we're going to, you know, walking around all over this over the city, there's people who are receiving these letters, and I can guarantee you the people who have not submitted this back, they're scared. Okay, I've been talking to them. They're crying. They don't have the resources or sometimes knowledge to understand why are they getting this letter. Some people are getting confusion between, I got 3 bullets, but Pinellas County, by the way, if you don't know this, is also sending a letter to our residents in our city. And now they got one that's due, by the way, March 1st, okay? And they are confused, okay? I really think from walking around all District 3 that there is some lack of education or communication or something, that they're not understanding what is going on. Okay, there's people who don't have water heaters in our city, okay? They don't, you know? And a couple that are really close to my house that I know, because they don't know what to, I mean, it's financial. There's many reasons, right, why people aren't moving forward. Some people did unpermitted hurricane work because, you know, they thought that they could, not in a bad way. They just want to be in their house. They have nowhere to go. Okay, there's, you know, oh, well, you just sell your house. It's not that simple, you know. Pinellas County is expensive to live in, you know. And, I mean, I don't know. I think this is a very punitive thing for the city to do, to call it 3 times. I mean,
Well, that's
not
why-
the amnesty.
that's why I'm saying to-
But
to
I'm
get
saying
rid
let's
of it.
remove it. Then
Right.
why not have an amnesty? Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, Lisa.
Okay,
I'm
no, I mean,
not-
I think we're all talking the same thing here.
That's what I'm saying,
It's a
why
single
remove it?
It's the
You know what I'm
same.
saying?
We're talking specifically about hurricane impacted
damage.
homes.
That's
If
what
you
I'm
did-
talking
If
about.
you did unpermitted work and it wasn't related to the hurricane, we're not talking about exempting you, right? We're talking exactly what you were talking
But isn't
about, which
everybody
is,
hurricane though, is what I'm saying?
no, there's plenty of people that do renovation work that wasn't, the gentleman that was just here, their house was not impacted, and they're doing work. They're building a brand-new house, not because they were damaged, but because they want to.
Unpermitted work is what I'm saying.
No, but I'm saying that is an example of work that's being done that has nothing to do with the hurricane damage. And so talking about the exact same thing here. I think we're on the
Okay.
same page here, right?
Mhm.
We want to help
So if
people
it's
that are,
related, we just say.
It's
not
a
you.
single fee.
well, it's more than that.
permit
We
fee.
want to tell them, come talk to us.
Come
right?
get a
That's
permit.
what the letters have been, come talk to us so we can help you. I mean, we have amazing commissioners. Commissioner Maldonado served with the volunteers. You know, if there's something about codes that, and building permits that Commissioner Robinson doesn't know, I'll be surprised, right? We have people, we have resources, we still have volunteers available that if we wanted to, we could call them up and 10 of them would show up tomorrow and say, let us help you. That's what we want. We want people to come to us and say, let us help you. If you're confused, we can help you. If you don't know what to do in this situation, there's no punitive part, there's no punishment, there's nothing. We just want to help you. Come talk to us. And I think that's the message that it should be is, come let us help you. We want to help you. We want to help you figure it out. If you're not quite ready yet, that's fine. But if you did work that's unpermitted, that's what we're talking about today, right?
So is that what we're adding to these 250 that we're saying that are non-responsive?
No, we're saying
I mean, the
that on the,
communication piece that you're saying is what I'm talking
Well,
about.
the
not
200,
ads.
well, that's been part of the letters that's gone out. It's just,
But it
come
doesn't
talk to us.
explain that. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you get an official letter,
I know.
right?
Well, look, I'm happy if,
I mean,
if
we
we get,
understand
if
that
we
we're
get that
here,
list, we
you
can
know?
call them and go, you and I can go door knocking
I
and
will.
talking to those individuals because, you know, we do want to hear from them. We do want to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to help them. I think we're on the same page. It's like, we really want to help these individuals. And it's just tough because they're not responding to anything. I'm not even sure if they're in their homes or where they're at.
You know,
But also for the other, besides the 250, if you did unpermitted work, please come see us. Yeah. We're gonna work through this.
I think Laura's cringing. Maybe she wants to add something to the discussion.
So just a couple items. So the last letter that went out, yes, was intentionally the specifics on the potential 3 times the permit fee were not included because that was not going to be the case for everyone. Every situation has been different, and so we have them categorized when they respond into 3 various buckets. To date, and again, the intent has never been to even after the 16th, subject people to the 3 times. We just want compliance and for them to come in and try and encourage that. One of the things, though, that I think I need clarification on for sure, because whether it's after the 16th and to the June 30th or however that looks, one of the things that we've been distinguishing between is those that come to us. Again, we just want you to come to us, we want to work with you, versus those that maybe are either, from an enforcement state, either turned over to us, someone tells us, reports it, there's a contractor doing work without a permit, and now, so I just want clarification and on if you would like us to treat those the same. Because again, a little different. Those, I think we're all on the same page of if you're coming to us, again, even after, I don't want to say after the 30th of June, but again, the goal is just to get you into compliance to the point of, in talking to the city manager, she was suggesting, well, even picking up the phone, if we had phone numbers for all of these individuals, we would want that type of communication with them. Again, just to be able to have the conversation, put their mind at ease, even if there was work, the goal isn't to go in and tear out all the drywall, you know, really to help them through that process. But one thing, again, is that the ones that aren't coming to us that are doing it, that are either turned over to us or from an enforcement standpoint, just an inspector goes by and sees it, and again, they're not forthcoming to us. I just need that direction.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Yeah, so thank you for emphasizing that. So I see that we're all on the same sheet. I see that there's passion and compassion for helping the residents. I think that the commissioners can help by bringing this up individually within our districts, and then the city can use the communications, media, as well as letters to just clarify what the commission's position is once we decide on what that is. Because there is confusion. I've been asked, and I've seen letters, and just like Commissioner Wisnicki said, which trumps which. So we can give them that clear guidance, we can communicate it, and we can get going with it, but we need to do something about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have consensus?
Can I ask one last question? Because you reminded me of something, which trumps which. Do we have clarification yet as to why Pinellas, what's the Pinellas County letter? Would that trump anything that we're all talking about here? Like, why are they requesting the same exact thing?
I can answer this.
You know already? Okay.
Well, Mike Twitty will be here.
But is he talking about that?
Yes, the
Okay.
next meeting. That was the second thing on my
That was
thing.
that was
So
your next point.
That was going to go right into my next point. We can transition to that.
Well, let's make sure we have consensus
Yeah,
on
let's
this
just
issue.
say yes.
I don't know what,
June 30th for,
that's not what I heard from
what type of date?
Commissioner Resnicki. It sounded like you didn't want to ever put 3 times on a hurricane.
I would love not to put 3 times on it, but if we're saying.
You don't
same
want to?
thing- No, the amnesty, yes, that's okay. No, we are on the same page.
Okay, so after June 30th.
Yes,
If-
3 times would
if-
be in effect.
Will be in effect for anyone who has not come to the city.
And it's a hurricane damage, right?
Got it.
Or for hurricane, but in the meantime, I guess we're saying 3 times is still in effect for anything that's not
Not storm related.
Not
If you don't come to us, for example, I have real estate listings
Yeah.
that have been reported to us.
Correct.
And they have now become a code case.
Yes.
Yes.
That is out of the amnesty.
That is out of
As
That's
soon
out of
as you
bounds.
land in
It's out of
codes
bounds, yes.
territory, you're out of the amnesty
Yeah,
period.
If you've
Okay.
landed in code, sure.
Okay, I
Can
understand.
I ask the city manager also, and I don't know how the rest of you feel about it, but probably the same way I do, that those 250 people who are left who you haven't heard anything from or who haven't responded in any way, I know that I would love to know who those people are in my district, because it's much easier for me to get in touch with someone and say, I'm your commissioner, I want to help you, than when they get a letter from the city and they go, oh my God, I don't know what to do, I'm not going to respond.
I would agree with that, too.
happy to help
I would
out on
agree.
If we got 250
everybody wants
divided by
their-
5, we each get 50, and
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we do send out letters, maybe we should include a phone number for them to put on their own as well, their return info to us.
Oh, to give us their phone number?
Yeah, because the thing is, if their mail is getting forwarded, we may not know that, but if they're returning and signing that letter, because that letter had to be signed, I believe, the check marks, the options on what you were doing. But if there wasn't any, fill in your return address and phone, and with the phone number we could call them, with the return address, we could get in touch with them, we can know where they are.
Email, phone, something,
Yeah.
Anything.
Anything, yeah.
Yep. All right, Commissioner Robinson, next discussion item?
So the next item is, I had mentioned about, seeing about if we wanted to get Mike Twitty here. So I did talk to Mike Twitty on behalf of this commission and city manager and community development, and he has agreed to come here to do a presentation on our next meeting, February 24th. He, at that time, will discuss the letter that he sent out, it's the condition status letter. I asked him as well on the FEMA wind mitigation letter for 2025, and as well the 110% rebuild. So he will come, if he gets called up to Tallahassee, he's still going to have somebody here for us to do the presentation or talk us through it, everything. They are as well doing an education presentation Thursday, February 12th at noon at the South County Building at 2500 34th Street North. It'll go through, it's an education, it's going to be streamed and it'll be taped. And it'll go through exemptions, condition letter, et cetera, kind of the same thing that we're going through now. It will be in their training room. You can as well, I will provide the city manager with a link to register for that we can put on our, out on the website as well. What else? And I highly suggest everybody take a look at on the property appraiser's website, Pinellas County's. There are facts, storm facts, so it might be something that you take a look at prior to this. So if you have any questions or anything rings true that you've heard from your residents that they've been asking, that we can bring those up and ask those on their behalf. There's also the repair, replace, calamity, damage, or destroyed property info. So they have a lot of good facts on the website. But that's just in prep of him coming.
I would front load the property increase and decrease. There's a lot of disparities. I do have some insight and info from what's been provided to me by the appraiser's office, but it would be very nice to hear Mr. Twitty say what the county's position is on that. So, thank you.
Figure that would be better coming from him. And then
Historic properties.
last item to talk about is historic designation. I just wanted to put that out and to have each of you promote that within your own districts for folks that are still on the fence, if they're thinking about it. Any home 50 years old or older can apply. There's no charge to apply. It is quite beneficial, especially if you're not going to elevate. Historic homes bring value to a community. They add value to a community. They keep with the character of the community, and they do add. And you can look that up. You can read about it on any, and that's why they do historic designations to begin with. So there's a lot of value with that, considering too going into another storm if you're not going to elevate. And I'd be happy, if we get good feedback on that, to do another workshop on that. I did one at the library previously, but I'm happy to do another one again.
All right, anything else? Do we have staff reports? City Clerk?
I have nothing to report this evening.
Okay. City Manager?
Nothing to report.
City Attorney?
Nothing this evening.
District 4?
Nothing to report.
District 3?
Just one thing, working on the volunteer programs, people heard about it. So I have a group of people in Bella Vista that are interested. We talked, I guess, in this meeting too about what our city looks like going down Gulf Boulevard. So I have a core group of people who are willing, and I'll work with you with your eyes wide open over there, that want to just walk Gulf Boulevard and pick up trash. That's all they want to do, is pick up trash. They say that they are proud of their community and that, you know, they want to do it now before springtime. And these are a lot of people who are just here now during this time in the season. And they just want to be prouder of the city. So they want to do that. And then also a couple of businesses that wanted to do the same on the beach side, is to just go around and pick up garbage. So that's it.
Thank you. District 2?
Library events, tomorrow the 11th, Florida's Highwaymen, presented by Elizabeth Britt. On the 13th, there's a feature film, Roofman, at noon. And then on the 13th, a Valentine's with the St. Pete Sax Quartet.
District 1?
So all I have to report is that I'll have a Beer with a Commissioner event at Mastery's Brewing next Tuesday, February 17th. And despite all the comments earlier to the contrary, we do have a small grocery store on St. Pete Beach. Beach Meats opened on Saturday on Gulf Boulevard, and I know I'm super excited for them. So if you haven't been there yet, make sure you stop in. They have meat and seafood and produce and all the things. So that's it.
Thank you. Yes, it's been amazing, the number of openings that we've had in St. Pete Beach in the last couple of months, especially brand new businesses that were never here before. We have Caribou Coffee, we have the Crepe Place next to the ice cream place. That looks amazing. We had Malia's, that's been there for a little bit longer. Adrian's Steakhouse, no relation to me, right up the street here. So it's really nice to see how many new businesses, and I love going to, to all those events. The Seahorse just reopened, so it's good to start seeing the businesses finishing their renovations and then coming back, and excited to go to all these amazing local businesses. With that, thank you all. We are adjourned.
Can I see your comment for the audience? So make sure we have